Hello and welcome to the weekly live Q&A show, the Inside the Lab weekly live Q&A show. I'm Terrence, your one and only host here of Inside the Lab, and I am here on this glorious Saturday afternoon. We are two live streams in this week, right? Like if you're here watching on the replay, and you didn't know we did a pop-up live stream in the middle of last week, right? We just wasn't scheduled, wasn't promoted or anything like that. We just popped up, played some games with the community, played some Alien Isolation. It was great time, good time. The conversation was great, as it was still very much, uh, revolved around a specific theme, which was why do you play video games, right? So, excuse me, sorry about that. It was great times. You can check out the replay on that. We left it up because the conversation again was just fun, and I enjoyed everybody who came out and who was able to partake in the pop up live stream, and it was popular, right? For lack of better words, it was popular, so it is something that we will do again indefinitely. So if you are here, if you're new here to the channel and you are watching on the replay, most importantly, or if you're new here and you're watching right now and you're coming in, I do want to welcome you to one, do like, give the stream a like, give it a thumbs up, and two, if you haven't yet, do subscribe to the channel because we have a lot of awesome and helpful and entertaining and educational content coming up for the 2021. On top of that, the live show will continue to evolve, will continue to get better in terms of quality and just overall delivering, high valued content. But as we give more people a little bit more time to trickle on in. Again, this week's theme or this week's topic is, some of the I wanted to kind of share and address some of the most common mistakes made when building a PC. Some that I've seen other users make, and just across the many forums on the internet, or if I was troubleshooting somebody because they maybe made a mistake after receiving their PC, after delivering it, right? Or after they've built it themselves. There's still, just as much work involved after the build process that there is, with the build process. And that's even, and we all know something we're going to talk about in this live stream. There's even more work required before you even start building, right? That's something we're going to talk about because that can fall under the category of a mistake, right? That's, having a problem arise before you can even start building. Maybe you've bought an incompatible component, maybe with like your case, or God forbid you brought, a incompatible motherboard, right? With your CPU, or your power supply doesn't have the necessary pin requirements, right? I mean, so many different mistakes that can be made across the spectrum. If you're here on the replay, right? Shout out to our replay friends, but if you're here on the replay and some of these you may have encountered, or you may say, hey lab, I'm pretty well versed, I'm comfortable in the build process, that's awesome. If you watch this show all the way through and I left out some of those common mistakes, do be sure to drop them down in the comment section below. I don't know everything, I don't know it all, and either way, if it's information that could be helpful and it's information that can be valuable to anyone here in this community, by all means, please definitely do share. And those of you who are here live, I welcome you to do the same. If you're here live, you have the benefit of engaging with me in real time. I do answer all questions as they come along. I see we have Damon Warren says, "Good Saturday, peeps. Stopping by to say what's up." It's good to see you, D. Thanks for popping in. D's a regular here on the channel, another fellow creator. And I also saw my mom was, I believe she's still here, but my mom, Pamela, is also here. She's made one of the live shows out of all the people who've popped up, right? And those of you who have been sat through a couple of these, of all the people who've showed up, probably my mom is one person who probably makes me the most nervous to know that she's like watching right now, right? I don't know if she's lurked before and watched some of our previous live shows, but do like shout out to Mom Zeus is in the house. But yeah, D, thanks for stopping by and say hi. This is our normal Saturday live stream, and we're discussing some of the most common mistakes made when building a PC. I know the topic isn't as cool or sexy as say like um, how to build a PC or some of the other topics that we've talked about. But it's very important. This live stream is especially dedicated to that one individual or a select few of people who may be on the fence about building a PC, or maybe they've already broken that nervous barrier, right? And they're ready to jump in and they are ready to build, I still want to present this content, right? The content for this live show to that individual to help them avoid as many of those mistakes as possible. Because, like most things, a little bit, you may have one or two or few, but if they add up, right? If the more mistakes you made, then the higher the risk of component failure, or your parts can degrade faster, right? Especially when we're talking about heat dispersion and airflow, right, within your case. Cases is a fun conversation. We talked about that during the pop-up live show. And again, I'll try to remember, for those of you on the live stream, to throw a chat or throw a card up here in the top corner at some point, because I do go back and I do try to add some level of searchability with the live shows. So I do try to plug in some of the previous videos and some of the previous live shows we've done here on the channel, especially if we talked about them and they are relevant to this topic, which I guess you could say in that topic we talked about why do you play video games, and while I was playing Alien Isolation, I shared some of the reasons why I like playing video games. We're not going to go too much into discussion here because our weekly live Q&A shows are heavily focused on a specific topic, as to where our pop-up live streams may be centered around the topic, but it's very broad and open for as many different people to join in, right? It's a simple question: is why do you play video games? If you're here in this community and you indulge in computer parts, or computer hardware, maybe you just maybe you just enjoy PC tech, right? A lot of comments I engage with here on the channel, on our VODs and our regular videos, a lot of times it's users just making mention like, hey, I just like watching videos on computers and tech in general, and your content is able to, and capture both of those areas that viewer in particular is looking to satisfy, right? Or everybody comes on this platform into some degree for some type of viewer satisfaction, right? Satisfaction. I can't talk today, fam, but we're gonna get through it. But right, everybody comes on this platform looking to get something out of it, right? And that could either be, you can either come to the platform because you want to learn how to do something, like learn how to build a gaming PC, or you want to kill some time and you're just looking for some fun interactive videos. Or here myself on YouTube, I like watching long form videos, right? Or long form content. But yeah, and there we go. Pamela says, "Hey, yeah, hey, mom, it's good to see you. Thanks for stopping by the live stream, mom, and everybody else that's watching it. And if you're hanging back in the chat, do feel free. Let me know where you're watching from, right? I know Damon, who's, I believe he's still here. I know Damon's right. He's in my neighboring state, Delaware, right? That's where I grew up at. That's awesome stuff. So yeah, again, this weekly live show, this show is also doubles as a Q&A slash ask me anything. If you have any questions about the topic at hand as we're progressing through, please feel free to ask at any time. Or if you have any general questions you want to ask about me, I will do my best to answer them. And the same thing applies to those of you who are watching on the replay. Shout out to our replay viewers, because I do know some of you do hang back and come back and watch the live streams if you're unable to make it when it goes live. And I also want to plug that any event that you see the live stream coming to, pop up in your home feed or in your subscription box, and you're unable to say make that time and date, just tap the link anyway, give the stream a like. It still very much helps us reach other people in the community. And also comment with any questions you may have about the topic, because I almost always 100% leave it in the title. I try to give you a heads up to prepare for the conversation, just in case you might have a specific question about what we're talking about in that particular live show. Like, for example, this one is how to avoid some of the most common mistakes made when building a PC. Damon says, thanks, Kimberly. Yeah, as our moderator, shout out to our moderator, welcoming everybody into the chat. So, tell you what, again, while we're waiting for more friends and fam to join in, we're going to do a little, oh, hold on. Okay. Had a little, wants to be, there we go. All right. Troubleshooting live technical difficulties, right? But anyway, a little bit of housekeeping, everybody's favorite segment. We're going to power right through it, right? But it is very important for you to sign up for our newsletter, sign up for our community newsletter. Unity does start with you, right? To a certain extent. But join our list. It's completely free. It helps me it helps me maintain a robust and open line of communication with the viewer, with the community. You're also, as an email, as an email, as I guess as you sign as a signee to our email newsletter, you'll get firsthand notifications and updates within the studio, like when our Discord goes live and when our Facebook group goes live, when channel memberships go live, all of those things, right? Any important news that needs to be heard by the community, needs to be heard by the audience, will be sent here first, right? So it's totally free to sign up. I just need your first name so I know what to call you, and your email address so I know where to send your mail. And should I be deemed unworthy to, grace your email inbox, and you're free to unsubscribe at any time and say, hey, look, dude, I follow you on Twitter, I follow you on Instagram. That's enough for me, and I totally, resonate with that, and will understand completely. We'll miss you, but you'll still be Lab Fam either way. So you can find the link to our newsletter almost always in a pinned comment on the videos and down in the basement, aka the description box. So if you're new and the first time you heard me refer to that, it's called the description box is the basement. But you'll be able to find it there. Give that a look-see over, and then slide and right over onto merch. You have the Inside the Lab official merch store. Look good, feel good playing. New merch, I know this may sound repetitive, fam, but listen to me. New merch is coming to the store. I've already designed them up. Just got to get them here into the back office of Teespring so we can get those up and live. We also have some nice year 2 gear coming in, as I am celebrating my official second year on the platform. Coming up in April is the channel anniversary. So yeah, it would be 2 years on the platform, which is awesome. So we have the year 1 shirts here, right? That came out in 2020, and then year 2 shirts and swag is going to come out in year 21 as we come up on April, as we come up on the month of April. But yeah, I mean, they're priced highly affordable, something, a little something for everybody, I imagine, girls and guys and gals, if you will. Hoodies, tri-blends, V-necks, what have you, long sleeve, all premium quality. Give that a look-see over. It really supports the channel in a direct way. Also, supporting the channel in a direct way is the official InsideTheLab.net website, right? It's an extension of the content. You can contact me over there if you have any ideas or any general questions about anything that we might have talked about during any of the live shows, or that I might have talked about in one of the vlogs or videos. And maybe you want to consult with me to, help you with your PC. Maybe you want to build a PC. Maybe you're unsure. You have some questions. You can always reach out to me here. I usually respond in less than 24 hours, as I am almost certainly have notifications enabled on these things. And you can also check out the complete videography as well on the channel, right? All the videos published since the channel went live. So definitely give those a look-see over. All 3 areas really support the channel in a huge way, and that's something that's it's vital to community growth, right? To grow in this community is support, and I really am unable to do it without you, right? Yeah. All right. Awesome. So moving on, let's jump right into it, because essentially building a PC can be a daunting and painstakingly confusing process, right? But courage is being scared to death, right? But brave enough to stand up to it, right? That's very important, because fear is the number one doubt, or doubt is number one, killer. Fear is the number one killer. If you're afraid to do something, you just won't do it, point blank, period. But courage is being scared enough, or being scared to death, but brave enough to stand up to it, right? And just persevere on, and just push on. Like Sean Cannell, another popular creator on the platform, as Sean Cannell says, quote, punch fear in the face, right? That's literally what you have to do. And this is relative even to building a PC. Sean Cannell, very large YouTuber who specializes in helping you build your brand, as he says, punch fear in the face, right? Do the same thing with this process, because yes, building a PC can feel like a daunting and really just a confusing process from the jump, right? The moment you try to understand what DRAM is, and what a CPU chipset is, and what have you, I mean, from the very beginning, it can feel pretty daunting. So in this YouTube live stream, we are discussing some of the most common mistakes made when building a PC and how to avoid them. Champion Mode says peace, lab family. It's good to see you. It's good to see you, John. Champion Mode 314 says peace to all. Yeah, definitely. Welcome to the live show. Welcome to the Saturday live Q&A. We did a pop-up live stream in the middle of the week. That was fun. That was good times. That was definitely good times. We are going to do that again, y'all. We are going to do it again. But all right, so to begin, the first mistake, in my opinion, is your lack of research before buying your parts. Now, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. That's very true, right? But a lack of research before you buy your parts is you're setting yourself up for failure along that journey. Okay, it's something we recommend all the time, especially here in our live shows, and that's research, research, research. Do your research on your parts before you buy them. Getting the right case form factor, right? Whether that be ATX, micro ATX, mini ITX, you know, getting the right form factor that makes the most sense for your personal space. If you're on a desk, right, and you want your PC to be on the desk with you, which is what I recommend, right? I recommend, you not place your PC on the ground, especially if you have carpet. It's going to smother and just choke the air coming into your PC from up below or up from beneath it, right, and inside the chassis. I mean, just you want to avoid it when all possible. And even if so, maybe get yourself a stand or a solid piece of wood where you can maybe put it on there. And that way you can create at least a 1 to 2 inch gap underneath the lower portion of your case. But with that said, you still very much want to get a case that makes the most sense for your personal space, right? And that's, again, if you want to have a table or a desk and you want your monitor and your computer all there with you, well, you don't want a really large case, right? In most cases, pun intended, in most cases, a micro ATX case would likely benefit you the most. Not a lot of users need a large case, aka an ATX case. I personally am a fan of large cases, but we have our mini ITX mini ITX build series coming up here soon, and I've just fallen in love with the case that we've went with to do that series, right? To do a mini ITX build, to look at some of the pros and cons to going with a smaller form factor PC. But one of the definite pros to that is it's a huge space saver. So if space is a concern or space is an issue, you're going to want to do your research and make sure you get a case that's going to be able to fit on your table. Because guess what? Even if you want to put it on the ground level, on the floor, you still have to then account for your cable lengths and the fact that now your cords, you might be limited to how you can move your mouse if you're going with a wire mouse, right? And also with your keyboard if you're going with a wire keyboard. But even still, you know, you'll have a whole cluster of wires and cables down on the ground. Whereas to up on the table, you can kind of nest them behind the monitor and they're out of sight, out of mind. So you definitely want to do your research before you buy, right? Do your research before you buy. That starts with researching your case. If you have an idea on the motherboard you want, let's say it's a micro ATX motherboard, then you know for sure that you at least need a micro ATX case, or you can't use an ATX case or an ATX motherboard with a micro or mini ITX case. It just won't fit, right? It just won't fit, fam. There's no force in that. There's no force in that at all. So making sure you're getting a case that makes the most sense for your personal space is a mistake that I've often seen. You know, a buyer could be possibly caught up on the hype of just getting there, just the idea of knowing that, hey, I have the money, I have the funds, I set aside, or I saved up, or maybe I got a stimmy, and I can invest. I can finally buy, right? I could finally buy that system, or I could finally make that jump to PC gaming because it's not cheap even right now. Like the graphics card market has made building like nigh difficult, right? Like near difficult. The best PC to build in 2021 under $900 video we did. I want to use that as a reference because normally, at least daily, I will get comments on that video about, hey, I can't find the 1660 Super. That graphics card is like 3 times that amount now. Or I can't find this, all the graphics cards are over $500. Like, what's going on? It's one of the reasons why that video is a borderline conundrum because right now, as it stands, it's really difficult to get a graphics card, like if at all, especially at MSRP, right? Like especially at MSRP. But in that video, that was a micro ATX case, and that's about as a healthy form factor I would say is appropriate for most end users, and even it fit on a table with your keyboard and with your mouse and with your monitor with no issues, right? With no compromises. Awesome stuff, really was. But yeah, on top of your case, another mistake that's often made, and this is one you definitely want to avoid before you get all your parts, because if you do this, there's no going back, right? And that's doing your due diligence on your power supply unit. We did a whole live show on the importance of researching your power supply unit. I highly recommend you sit down for at least 35 to 45 minutes of that conversation. If you're here watching now and you weren't there for that live show, or if you're here on a replay and you weren't there for that live show, I highly recommend that you give that conversation a watch. Watch over that conversation, because there was a lot of valuable information that could help you with your buying decision when buying a power supply unit, right? We talked about power draw, modular power supply units versus non-modular power supply units, and even full or semi-modular power supply units. It was an awesome conversation. I would definitely recommend you give that one a watch, but you have to do your due diligence with your power supply unit, right? Where does that start with? Well, getting the right pin connectors, right? Because your graphics card, depending on what caliber you're rolling with, your graphics card may require a 4-pin, 6-pin, or even 8-pin or more to power your graphics card. And you want to make sure that you have the appropriate pins to power your graphics card. It's one of the worst mistakes you can make, to have all your parts ordered. If you get if you watch me build and you see how I do it, when I drop the power supply unit in first, especially if it's a modular power supply unit and I don't have to attach the cables until I'm ready to do the cable management, part, you would be heartbroken to get to that part of the process and be like, well, daggone, I don't have the right power connectors. And if it's a non-modular power supply unit, that means you have to return the whole power supply unit just to be able to have meet the pin requirements for your graphics card. It could be extremely frustrated to get to that part, because you're like right there. You're like right there. Again, if I'm building with a modular power supply unit, I will install the power supply into the case, right, to the chassis, and I will wait to do the cable management work towards the end. Now, I follow a similar workflow or a similar work path when even working with non-modular power supply units or even semi-modular power supply units. And that's because I want to get the cables in place and ready and just get that part out the way. But once you get there, like, can you imagine not having the right power pin connectors and having to return your power supply unit, when if you would have did a little bit of research, you would have known, say, hey, I'm going with an RTX 2060. It requires 6 pins. I want to make sure I get a graphics card with at least a 4+2 power pin connector, as opposed to, say, just a power supply unit with just a 4-pin power connector. You'd be up the creek without a ladder, or without a paddle, right? I just want to mention, like, you'd be in a little bit of world of trouble. But yeah, it's important to know. And then when you are building, right, and you want to make sure you're getting the right parts, or you're building a system that's going to be able to meet your expectations. One thing I do recommend is look at the minimum or recommended specs for the top 3 games you want to play the most, right? You can do more. Like, if you play a lot of games, by all means, kind of look at all the games you at least definitely play, or you want to look to play day one when your PC is ready to go, like when you're ready to start downloading some games that are out right now, right? And I use Alien Isolation because, for one, we were just playing it, and it's actually a pretty awesome game. If you want to see how it performs too. I mean, I was playing at 3440 by 1440p, but the stream was outputting to 1080p. But when I do my gameplay sessions, I do leave MSI Afterburner up, so you can look at my main editing statistic rig, or my main system, my editing rig, the stats of the game. But definitely, give that video a watch. Good times. But in this case, I used Alien Isolation, and essentially Alien Isolation, it looks like, can run on a potato, with the recommended requirements being an Intel Core 2 Quad Q 9650, So, I mean, not really a demanding game, but as you can see, if you wanted to, I mean, I'm gonna imagine this is 1080p, right? At least 1080p. As on the AMD side, what they recommend is a Radeon, at least an R9 or 200 series Radeon card. So I imagine that's 1080p is, I believe the 280, like a 280X or a 270, excuse me, has 3 gigabytes of VRAM. So that should be enough to power the game at 1080p, maybe low settings, but the game can essentially run on a potato. And this is actually maybe not as good as an example. I wanted to use Cyberpunk's minimum requirements, but they're just hard to trust at the moment. But yeah, look at the minimum or recommended specs for the top 3 games you want to play. That's what I recommend. And that way it gives you a broad idea to build around those hardware configurations or to maximize your frame rate output and your expectations. So that way you don't say, oh man, again, not this game, because even right now to build for these configurations, I mean, you would be sitting pretty with like a 1050 Ti, which unfortunately is still very much, priced out of MSRP right now. But I wanted to do a video on this because Nvidia is allegedly set to, relaunch the RTX 2060 and the GTX 1050 Ti to kind of to counter the GPU supply shortage issue. But we'll see if those graphics cards drop at MSRP, with the 1050 Ti, I believe, being $189, and the RTX 2060, depending on the variant, but normally going for about $329 on average. So if they are available for those price configurations, they should present enough value for either 1080p medium setting gamers, or maybe even 1440p low setting gamers, or gamers who want to get as most frames as possible at 1080p when paired with a fast processor. But yeah, if you look at the games that you want to play, you look at the minimum and the recommended specific, requirements, try to build at least a generation above what the recommended is. And that way you give yourself a little bit of leeway for drivers to mature and things of that nature. So, yeah, give that a look-see over and discover, some issues also games may have, right? Let's say the game you want to play is CPU dependent. You want to make sure you're building around a fast CPU, or certainly if your target is a high refresh or a higher resolution than 1080p, let's say 1440p, then you want to make sure you're putting a decent amount of your budget into your graphics card, into your GPU, because regardless of minimum or recommended specs, that extra level of detail requires now more GPU horsepower, and believe it or not, even slightly a little bit more CPU processing power as well, because your CPU definitely still has to do some of the work, although you're gaming at a higher resolution. So that's the first set of mistakes, in my opinion, you can make. Right? We talked about not doing your proper research. Right? I'm not sure if some of you who may be young and here on the replay or watching now, but the 3 P's, like, right, prior poor planning leads to poor whatever progress. Right? Research, plan, avoid as many mistakes as possible, so you don't have to stop yourself in the middle of the build process, right? You can have CPU installed in the motherboard, you can have the RAM installed, you can have your cooler installed, you can have the case, you can have your fans orientation set up, you can have, the backplate installed, which we're going to get to in a second, what you should do before the motherboard's installed. But you can have everything set up and good to go, and maybe run into one issue that, with a little bit of foresight, could have been prevented if you would do your proper research. Do research. I can't stress that enough. Well, even when I'm working with clients, right, and I'm doing customer builds, I probably spend just as much time researching the necessary components or parts that best describes that person's needs or what they may need to get out of a PC. I will spend just as much time researching the parts than I do building it, because I want to make sure that it's going to be able to handle all of the things that user is expecting of that machine to do, right? All of the tasks, all of them, right? It's very important. I mean, it's part of I guess you could say, my value proposition as a system integrator, as a builder. But it should be like that in any service, right? The customer is important. The customer needs is important. Here with this channel, value, right? Value is what's important. Delivering that value. Damon says the plan didn't fail. You failed to plan. That's absolutely right. That's a very good way to put it. Exactly right. Like you you didn't fail, right? Or the plan didn't fail. You failed to plan. That's a very good way to put that. And it's one of the things that could really set you back. And as we segue into the next few mistakes that new builders make, could really cost you money essentially, and we don't want that. Again, this hobby is already crazy expensive as it is. There's ways to mitigate that cost, and that's a few conversations we talked about, right? For those of you who are new here to the channel, which if you are, again, I definitely welcome you to give this stream a like and also subscribe here to the community. We go live once a week here every Saturday about between 3 to 6 o'clock, right? We're still working on a set time, a time that works. But on a side note, the pop-up live streams are going to help me try to find a more balanced time to go live, especially as we try to kick it up to 2 live shows a week, one on the weekend and then one during the week for those who are unable to make it on the weekend. But I digress. But yeah, I mean, the plan didn't go wrong. I mean, you not planning is what went wrong, right? Or you didn't fail. The plan didn't fail. You failed to plan, right? And that's more so the build process, which is a perfect segue to jump into right our next slide here, and that is the build process, right? And that's the build process. Most importantly, number one, falls under not having the necessary tools required to get the job done. This is applicable to anything in life that requires you to be hands-on with anything involving building, construction, repairing, whether you're building a PC, working on a car, building a piece of furniture. Like I've worked in the furniture industry when I was younger. I'm not that much older, but when I was younger, I worked in the furniture industry for quite a while, and I spent some of my time as I repaired furniture during some of my years doing that, and I having the necessary tools was important to getting the job done right, to like repairing wood or to repairing upholstery, right? You had to have the right tools. And even as a delivery driver, we still needed tools to get the job done right. Rather that's door guards, so not to destroy a customer's home going into the house, or moving blankets is to not, dragging dirt and debris onto a customer's carpet. All these are tools. They're just tools of the trade, right? No matter what you do, rather you build computers, if you're a vehicle mechanic, I am preaching to the choir here. If you work on cars, you know how important it is to have the necessary tools to get the job done, right? And for starters, these tools right here are the first and foremost the ones you need most. These hands. David says, "Love the picture, love that picture, GPU love." Yeah, I mean the right there where I'm holding is actually a CPU box. It's the Ryzen 3. I believe this is a 2200G. And the background there is a For the Win GTX 1080, and I believe that box is when I had just got the MXI Gaming X Trio in, and I had yet to open it. I had threw it up there because we still had the GTX 1080 Ti we were doing videos on, and I wasn't quite ready to move off or move away from the GTX 1080 Ti. Like the Asus ROG Strix GTX 1080 Ti is still arguably one of my favorite graphics cards now. I am falling in love though with the Asus ROG Strix RTX 3090 Stroud. Like I love that cooler. I love the RGB features on it. It's just a premium card. It's also a very expensive card. We're not going to talk about the price, right? If you watch the unboxing video, which you definitely can find that video down in the description box below, aka the basement, as me and D like to call, right? You can find that video down in the basement. Check that out because we talked about the price, we talked about the specs of the RTX 3090. My review is coming up this week. I know I said that, I believe, last weekend, but I kind of wanted to take my time. It's such an interesting GPU, and I was really had to make sure my benchmark numbers were accurate and what I'm going to put out. But yeah, I checked power draws, all different things, temperatures, FPS. Man, it's gonna be a great time. Do make sure you have notifications enabled so you can catch that video when it drops, because the RTX 3090 review is going to be what I like to imagine some of my best work, especially in terms of just video and cinematography, music and mood. And Lab Fam, you guys and gals know I like to try to present a story in the content. And now most of the time, the hardware, the specific computer part, that is the central character of the story, right? For example, let's use the Asus ROG Strix RTX 3090 unboxing video. that was the first ever unboxing video I did. I never really understood unboxing videos, but the RTX 3090, just giving how rare they are or how hard they are to find, I figured I definitely should share that experience with the community. I regret not doing it live too, fam. I will say next unboxing we do will be a live unboxing. You heard it here first. Mark my words, right? You heard it here first. But yeah, check that video out. It was our first ever live unboxing, and the RTX 3090 in the unboxing video was the hero, of that story. So reverting back to another common mistake made when building a PC. And these involve the core part of the building process. Now, assumptions aside, and it's not good to assume, right? If you're old school, you know what happens when you assume. But this level of experience, I assume that you're comfortable with, say, installing a CPU, you understand the process enough, or you have the courage. If you have the courage to start, then you have the courage to finish. And needing that, initial boost of confidence to just get started is sometimes enough to get you there. Is sometimes enough to get you to this particular point, and that is the actual build process. We talked about the research process. We talked about, let me switch back here. We talked about, doing your due diligence with researching your parts. Now, I said your case, but fam, if you've been with me on any numerous occasions or any other live shows, I tell you, research every component that you plan on buying. Even if you do not plan on building it yourself, it's perfectly fine, okay? It's not for everybody, but again, if you have the courage to start, you have the courage to finish. But building's not for everybody. But even if you have to pay a system integrator, right? Somebody like myself, Origin PC, what have you, mom and pop store, or even a micro center, even if you're paying a third party, a second party in this case, if you're paying a second party brand or company to build your PC for you, research the parts, right? Don't let them tell you, say, hey, this is what you should get. They don't know. And I'm speaking to you, fam. This is from my heart. I'm talking to you from my heart because I've worked with clients. I've worked with, people who are looking to build PCs on a regular basis, right? And I'm telling you right here, right now, don't let the system integrator tell you what's good or what's good and what's not good for you. That could really boil down to how much money you're willing to spend. It should always be about what your expectations are and what your needs are going to be with your system. That's not me saying, oh, you should get a $60 motherboard because it's cheap. Oh, well, yeah, you should get a 6-core 12-thread Ryzen 5 CPU because they're like $199 right now. Maybe you don't need a 6-core 12-thread CPU, right? Maybe you're fine with a 4-core 4-thread CPU. Maybe you're not a gamer. Maybe you're a student, professor, parent with students who are doing virtual learning. In most cases, a 4-core 4-thread CPU would be beneficial to you. But your system integrator should be able to craft a system that is based around your needs. All right. And this is why it's very important to, although you may not be comfortable with building, maybe say, I'm not comfortable with dropping a CPU into the socket, or I'm not comfortable installing RAM, or I don't know the exact amount of thermal paste. We're going to talk about that. The exact amount of thermal paste I should use, or should I use non-conductive or conductive thermal paste, or should I configure my fans in the front for intake, or should I configure my fans on top to be to bring in cold air or exit or disperse hot air, whatever the case may be. Research your components, especially your core components. What are your core components in Lab's opinion? CPU, GPU, motherboard. Okay. Why? For starters, your motherboard is going to be what future proofs you, especially in today's modern times. It's going to be what helps you get the most of your system in terms of longevity, right? Your CPU is going to be it's a core component because that everything you want to do starts at the CPU, right? Every task that needs to be calculated, that's up to your CPU. Your graphics card, your GPU, which is graphics processing unit, your GPU is solely responsible for rendering pixels, for rendering graphics. But when it comes to complicated math, when it comes to algorithms and communicating between your RAM and your motherboard, your CPU, your GPU and your RAM, it all starts with the CPU. So those are 3 core components. Those are components you almost and definitely want to research before you jump into wanting to pay somebody to build you a custom PC, right? And that way you're confident, right? That for starters, that person's not trying to hose you. Let's not act like the world's all sunshine and rainbows. There are bad people out there, unfortunately. And if you're able to work with me, by all means, I showed you where you can hit up Lab if you're here on the replay or if you're watching now and you're interested in having a custom PC built. Send me an email, send me a DM. We can talk about it, we can conversate about it. Flexible with almost any and all kinds of different budgets. Again, the graphics card market is a little wonky right now, so it can get tricky, right? It can get tricky because you start to get in an area around where you're paying, more than MSRP for your stuff. But again, to just track back and not to deviate too far from the track, research your parts. We talked about that in the beginning. Now we're getting ready to segue into the next level of or next set of mistakes, and that's during the build process. And I say that because, again, if you have the courage to start, you'll have the courage to finish. But if you're ready, if you're past the point of researching, right? Because it starts with, let's say you are the builder. Let's say you're not paying a system integrator. We're not even going to get into buying pre-builds, because of pre-builds, some of the information can be ambiguous. You don't really know the motherboard. You don't know the power supply brand. You may know the CPU and the GPU, but you don't know, if it's a aftermarket GPU. You don't know if it's a reference style cooler. You're left in the dark with a lot of details on buying a pre-built. And with a pre-built, if you are targeting a pre-built, I can almost guarantee you now, be prepared to possibly need to upgrade your RAM, as most of them like to skip on RAM, like install 8 gigabytes, which is generally not enough. If you're interested in buying a pre-built, chances are you're interested in playing games. I highly recommend 16 gigabytes at minimum for playing games, especially at 1080p. And if you're interested in doing any kind of streaming, even for recreational streaming, 16 gigabytes is almost a minimum. You most likely even very much would want 32 gigabytes, right? But Tiger Nation says, hey, it's good to see. It's good to see you. Good to see. On top of good to see you, my son Zion says, hey, what's up, Tiger Nation 87? It's good to see you. So yeah, if you're in that process of building and you're ready to build, research, and like how you say, whew, all my parts came in the mail. They're right there, right? Now, me personally, when I get parts, if they're for myself, I like to just read the box, right? When I was young, I like to read the boxes of cereals. I like to read look at the boxes of like action figures. If you grew up in the 80s or you grew up in the 90s where action figures are real popular, we're not talking about toys either, fam. We're talking about action figures, okay? Action figures, fully articulate limbs and all detailed action figures. But on the box of action figures, they had some pretty good, interesting reads that you could partake in. Before I would even open the action figure, I would just want to read the back of the box, right? Same thing applied to when I first got, like, say, our Nintendo, and we first got our Sega, and then the back was just like colorful and vivid, and it showed all these games. I like looking at just like reading over the hardware. Like my RTX 3090 videos, my RTX 3090 sat in the box, and we unboxed it. Actually, we did unbox it live. Right, it should have been a dedicated pop-up live stream to unbox it. So again, I apologize. Next unboxing will be live, right here on the channel. So again, you heard it here. But yeah, if you're ready to build, right? We're not talking about unboxing. We're done talking about the RTX 3090. Let's talk about the building process, because if you're ready to build, then that means you built up enough courage to start, and now you have to build up enough courage to finish. And as Damien said that they like the box there. That's me holding on to a Ryzen 3 2200G, and this was just a fun photo we took from behind when we were shooting the shop with me video, which the audio was horrendous. Man, let me just say on a super side note, right? Hang with me here for a second, because this was at a relevant time, because this is the moment I realized my camera didn't support my live mic. And this video, a lot of people liked it. Like the value was there, and definitely the value was there, and it's arguably still relevant now to this day. But it was always followed by, oh, this video was super helpful, super great, but where was your audio? I think one funny comment was somebody said, dude, did you leave your audio upstairs? And I thought that was funny. At least I thought it was funny. You got to laugh at those kind of things. I'm very much a new creator, and criticism doesn't really hurt me. It really doesn't. Things are going to get worse before they get better. right? I know I have a few creators that are watching me now, and just know that's just part of the process, right? Don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to fudge up. Just keep going. And I'm gonna tell you now, my first 10, I believe 10 videos was it, moderator? Our first 10 videos or so was I thought my live mic was working, and I shared this with a. Let me switch back here. Although you get a good vivid look of me sitting there, and I thought you could possibly see it, but I do have the live mic mounted there. But in our first 10 videos, uh, I thought my live mic was working, but no, it wasn't. It was, I did our first 10 videos with the live mic clipped, and I would always bring it back into production. I'm like, man, I mean, the audio should sound better. Why is it not working? And in that video is where like the comments came left to right, and it made me do a little research, and I felt like a complete noob once that whole entire time. I'm like, wow, how bad is that? Like the live mic is on. You can see the live mic in the videos, but it's not reflective of of audio quality. The audio quality was still very much poor. So with lesson, long story short is you're going to mess up, right? You're going to make mistakes. They say your first couple videos are your worst couple videos, but not all of them that were produced were bad. I say at that point, once I realized I needed to upgrade my audio game, and we just upgrade the camera. In general, the content just went in a totally new direction, and we're really growing here. That's why I said again, if you're new, do definitely be sure to give the stream a like and subscribe here to the channel if you're not already, with notification bell turned on. But jumping back as we jump into, there's a lot of jumping, right? A little crisscross action going on. But let's jump back into the build process, because again, this is where a lot of the costly mistakes can be had. It's right here during this process. And this is, again, this is not, this is you, the builder, right? This is not going with the system integrator. This is you having the parts shipped to your place of dwelling or to your location. Got all your box, got your tools, which is something we're going to talk about. You got your tools, you got everything ready to go, right? You've done your research. You're confident that you've made sure all your parts are compatible, everything's going to fit. You've calculated your expected wattage or what have you, and you're ready to rock and roll. As Damon says, time to get your hands dirty. And audio was in the attic. Yeah, I mean, audio was in a whole nother planet with that video. And again, and they tell you it's subjective, right? Like, don't think what may sound good to you maybe doesn't sound as good to your audience. Because, dare I say it, it was a time where I'm like, oh, the audio sounds fine to me, right? Like, it sounds fine to me. But it wasn't, appealing to the community. It wasn't appealing to the audience, and that is what mattered the most. So it's like your thumbnails may look good to you. You may think they look good, right? I may think my thumbnails may look good, but it's really based on how does the community think they look, right? Because I'm not going to produce a thumbnail and be like, this thumbnail is trash. This thumbnail is horrible. I'm just not. I'm gonna use it anyway though. Like, I'm not going to do that. So you gotta listen to your audience. You gotta listen to the audience, but if you're building, check this out. Forgetting to install the backplate is one of the, like, once you get to that point of, one thing I recommend is, if you're getting new parts, if all your parts are new, whether you're confident that they worked or not, I recommend you build outside the case, right? Like, get yourself a box, build on a box, set your motherboard up, install your CPU, install your cooler, install your RAM, your video card, get your power supply out, your storage, all of those things. Get all your core and all your components, all your necessary components out. Test them outside of the case for any early malfunction, right? Maybe you got a defective part. Maybe your power supply is defective. Maybe your motherboard's DOA. It rarely happens, but it's very possible. It just doesn't happen as much. Maybe, God forbid, maybe you bench your CPU if you're using an AMD CPU. Maybe you bench your CPU upon installing the cooler. You want to make sure that everything is good to go and set up in your case. So what I recommend is you test your parts outside of your case. But now, once you do that and say, oh, well, I built, everything's fine, hey, CPU, I'm in the BIOS, which is where if you watch a lot of the build videos, I've done one you can find right at the very top of this video description. But most of the videos I do, even if I'm confident the parts work or not, I still very much test them outside of the case, because I take pride in, oh, sorry about that. I take great pride in my cable management, And I would hate to get everything set up and be like, whoa, I'm booting to black screen, or it's not posting, I'm getting some beeps or what have you, and just have any issue. I'd rather try to identify those issues before the parts are getting ready to get seated into the case, right? And now one of the most common issues I see, right, as we bring up one of the most common issues that most people, it's almost like a running meme too, right? And that's forgetting to install the backplate, right? That's that metal piece you see me right there. This is I believe I'm not sure what video this is from. I want to say this is from the Core Shredder build. It looks like the Cooler Master adjustable controllers right there. As my right arm is in the way, but you want to install your backplate. Do that first. It may seem like a small, tiny mistake. You might say, how is that, as significant? Come on, lab. It's not a big deal. I tell you what, if you forget to install your backplate, here's what you've already done. You've installed your motherboard, right? That's fastened, that's seated into the chassis. You might have installed your cooler. If it's an AIO, you have to mount the radiator to the top, or if it's a fan cooler, it's mounted to the CPU, and you can work around it. That's not as bad. Maybe your video card's installed, everything is good to go. You set your PC up, and then you're like, oh shoot, was something supposed to go here? Like, this is weird gap that's right there. Yes, fam, that is the backplate. That should be done before installing the motherboard. It seems easy to forget. I myself, maybe I would say twice here recently with all the builds. I've done a lot of builds, even off camera, even from my own. If I've put something together, took it apart, or what have you, I've only done it twice, right? I've only looked up and said, holy cow, something's supposed to be there. And most of the time, if you're working with premium motherboards, right, it's really nice when manufacturers what they're doing now. The rear backplate is now part of the motherboard, right? There's no separate metal piece you have to put in first. It's just all part of the motherboard. And that's actually what more motherboard vendors should do. But right now, to be able to get that simplicity, you need to pay a slight premium, right? Like my Maximus Hero motherboard has an integrated backplate, right? No, you don't have to push anything. You don't have to place anything in the case, right? It already comes on the motherboard, so I just drop the motherboard into the case. But in the event it doesn't, you want to make sure to install that first. Butterknife says hello. Hello, Butterknife. It's good to see you. It's my daughter. Little family affair. But then again, applying thermal paste. I wanted to get here after we moved on from installing your backplate. It's pretty plain and simple, right? Look for your backplate. Get your case. Once you lay your case down, normally the backplate comes in the motherboard box. So once you're unboxing your motherboard and getting everything out, get the backplate, throw it inside the case. It's the first. Even if you almost forget to install the motherboard without putting it in there, you're going to immediately see, oh man, I almost put the motherboard underneath or on top of the backplate and ruin the motherboard. So if you throw the backplate just after you unbox your motherboard, just throw the backplate in the case, and you won't forget that way. You'll go to maybe put the motherboard in, and you say, oh shoot, that's right, I almost forgot to put the backplate. You take the motherboard, put it aside, then you install the backplate, drop it in, and you're ready to go. Now you cook it with fire. Another mistake is, too much thermal paste. Now, how much is too much thermal paste? I normally catch flack for my thermal paste usage, but a general good rule of thumb is about a pea-sized amount, right? Pea size is the right size. You don't need a lot or little, but you need just enough. And normally a pea size for non-Threadripper CPUs, and Threadripper gets a little tricky because it has 3 different chiplets underneath of the IHS, but for most standard Ryzen and Intel CPUs, a pea size right dead in the center is more than enough. If your cooler comes with factory paste and you don't have replacement thermal paste, that's perfectly fine. Don't beat yourself up for it. I purposely left it on with the under $900 gaming PC to build in 2021 to try to kind of prove a point to where CPU temperatures weren't high. They were well within spec. But 2 factors to take into consideration. One, I was testing in this portion, which does get a little warmer than the lower portion where I test at, because this space is a little more smaller, so it's easier for the heat to build up and accumulate and just get hotter and hotter, and your PC is dependent on the ambient air to cool itself down. But I left the factory thermal paste on there to show that you don't necessarily have to beat yourself up about not having aftermarket, thermal paste like Arctic MX4 or something what have you. It's perfectly fine to get it, and if it's something you can, plan for before going in, say like when you're getting your tools, a Phillips screwdriver, right? It's almost certainly all you need is a Phillips screwdriver. But when you're getting your tools, order some thermal paste and just use some isopropyl and remove the manufacturer's thermal paste and apply about a pea-size amount. That's all you need, but it's very important. And then another issue, I normally get this. This is interesting because I normally would get a call and they say, "Hey, I plugged the HDMI in, but I'm not getting any video. My screen is still black." And I'm like, "Let me guess. Did you plug your HDMI into the back of the motherboard, or did you plug it a little lower, closer to the power supply unit, into the graphics card?" They're like, "Oh, I plugged it into the back of the motherboard." I'm like, that's your problem now. That's your issue there. So, a common mistake you see is that they're so a first time user, if they've never worked with PCs before, they never had a PC, and you're not there to help them with the setup process. They may just jump right in and be like, "Hey, I'm just eager and excited to play. I want to just plug it in. I want to download some games. I want to get some frags out. I want to get some FPS drops or whatever." I mean, it's often overlooked, but still very much a rushed issue. But make sure you plug your HDMI cable in the back of your motherboard instead of the back of your graphics card. Very important. Tricion says, "What are you watching?" Just a little bit of supplementary video to kind of help address the topic that we're discussing, which is some of the most common mistakes made when building a PC. Tricion, I know you build. And anybody else, I see we had a few more people joining. If you're just now joining us, that is the conversation that we are discussing during this weekly live Q&A. And that is some of the most common mistakes made when building a gaming PC or building a PC in general. I don't want to just limit it to just a gaming PC, right? But just when building a PC in general, some of the most common mistakes made and how to avoid them. Right now, I was recommending that, or not even recommending, telling you definitely look, especially if you have a dedicated video card, plug your HDMI cable in the back of the motherboard instead of the graphics card. Now, it's okay if your CPU, has support for onboard graphics, right? For example, that'd be like an A-base series AMD CPU, right? Like the Ryzen 3 2200G. The box I was holding in that picture we had up a few seconds ago, the Ryzen 3 2200G. So that graphics card has onboard video. You can plug the HDMI cord directly into the back of the motherboard and you will get a video signal out, right? Like indefinitely. Tricion says, "I usually use the wrong screws on accident. Yikes." And Tricion says, "Yo, I have used those RAM sticks before." Which RAM sticks? The Trident Z? I love the RGB on those fans. But using the wrong screws can be, detrimental. And be humble, fam. Like, come on, guys, be humble. It's okay to look at the manual. It's okay to look at the manual. As experienced as I am, right? Like, I told myself one of these days we're going to do a challenge. I want to try to build blindfold, but I can only imagine how costly that might be, as I probably will make some of these mistakes we're talking about now. But using the right screws is almost always a struggle because sometimes you may have different screws for your storage drives, for like your cages, for your storage cages. They usually use a smaller screw. You may have different screws for your motherboard. You almost definitely will have different screws for your fans, and you could have different screws for your power supply unit. Or in some cases, all of the CPUs, or I'm sorry, all of the screws are general usage, which is still it's the best way to start building, in my honest opinion. A little easier to kind of jump in and do, but can get a little confusing once you factor in that you may need 4 different set of screws for 4 different parts along the way. Let me go back up as I see Skinny Live said, "Good stuff, broski." Scott, it's good to see you, Scott, a friend of mine. Jumps in and says, "Good stuff." And Damien says, "Good night, fam. Have a great weekend." D, thanks for stopping by and hanging out with us. Glad you were able to join in on the conversation, as always. And yeah, but back to going along with the dedicated, having a dedicated graphics. If you're using a CPU or most all Intel non-F based CPUs have onboard graphics, right? But it's best to have your video signal sent from the video card first, And if not, when you go back to plug everything, you're going to be met with the black screen. It's not like system hindering. Like most people I've helped, you know, troubleshoot who've had that issue, they're able to, get around it rather easily. Before you might have had to like maybe unplug, reinstall your graphics card, reseat the GPU. Um, but here with most modern hardware, what I recommend if you have this issue, like I tell most people, just power down your PC, plug your HDMI into the back of the GPU, you know, it's all good. Turn it back on, you should have a video, no problem, and it works every time. It's me, Paul says, hey, what's up? Hey, it's me, Paul says, good to see you. Thanks for stopping by on the live stream. I believe this is the first time we've had the pleasure of speaking. So, welcome to the live stream. It's me, Paul. So we are discussing some of the most common mistakes made when building a PC and how to avoid them. Um, if you're if you're a first time viewer here, I welcome you to subscribe to the community. We go live here once a week. Now, see, it's me, Paul says, if you're only using one GPU, would you recommend nice hash mining? So I am not as versed in the GPU mining world, just not an area we cover here on the topic. But a lot of helpful resources out there that could help you get set up with that, as I'm just not exactly sure. But most mining rigs are they use multiple GPUs just to maximize their hash rate. My understanding of it anyway. But so I do apologize about that. It's me cool. But if you're interested in building a mining rig, some of these same steps still very much applies to that process, even if it is for GPU mining, which I don't. My personal stance on GPU mining is I don't, but that doesn't mean you should or shouldn't. In terms of in terms of there being GPU shortages or stocks because of miners, again, my grievances isn't with the mining community. I believe it's up to the manufacturer or manufacturers to meet the supply and demand needs for both consumer groups, right? Because essentially, we both benefit from the same hardware just in two different ways. So there's really no competition between, say, or there shouldn't be. This is an unpopular opinion, but there shouldn't be any competition between both consumer groups. It really should be our grievances are with the manufacturers. It's up to them to meet the supply and demand, right? So I mean that's my official stance on it. And it's me, Paul says, don't worry, I'm already subscribed. That's awesome, man. I appreciate every single one of you who are subscribers to the channel. We're moving right on up, fam. Like we're going strong. It'd be nice for us to hit 2,500 here pretty soon. I mean that'd be really awesome. But yeah, it's me, Paul. So we're discussing. I see we had a few more people join on. So just to get you caught up to speed, as we're right here in this frame, we're talking about we're talking about common mistakes made when building a PC and how to avoid them. Right? We talked about researching your parts, how and why that is important to being able to eliminate some of the mistakes before you even get the parts sent to your door. It could be incredibly frustrating to have to refund parts you bought in the mail. So to avoid that, or even if you drove to a micro center, right? Even if you drove to a micro center and you bought them, and you can still very much go back and replace them, it's still very much a can be inconsiderate. It could be an inconsiderate part of the process if you don't plan correctly, right? Like Damon has said earlier, the plan didn't fail, you failed to plan, right? Skinny Live says, hit me later, broski. Got a bus to catch. All right, stay safe, stay warm, and most importantly, stay fabulous. I couldn't think of another adjective. But yeah, we're talking about some common mistakes to avoid. We talked about researching your parts. Here we are in the build process. We talked about making sure you install your backplate. Throw your backplate inside of the case before you even put the motherboard in there, just so it's not out of sight, out of mind, and you forget to install it. So if you put it directly in the center of the case and you have your motherboard in hand, you'll see it before you're ready to even start mounting in your case. You'll say, oh shoot, okay, let me throw it. Good thing I looked first, and now I want to go ahead and install the back plate. It's going to save me a lot of headache because it can't be considered purely aesthetic, but in my opinion, it's a combination of an aesthetic and just a efficient component to help proper airflow distribution from the front of the case streamline towards the back of the case. And then it also helps with like keeping dust out if you don't have the back plate, totally understandable. Like when I switched and upgraded my one of my kids' computer from an i5 7500 and the B350 motherboard, the ASRock Pro didn't have the back plate, and so it was fine. I mean, in some cases you can search on eBay, you can find replacement back plates. Like the core shredder video I did, I got that motherboard from Micro Center, and I was a little ticked off because it didn't come with the back plate. And I went there and kind of argued with him about it. And I did wait for a while. As remember we talked about, I sat on my parts, or the motherboard sat in the box for a while before I took it out the box and realized, holy crap, there's no back plate. But I ordered a back plate from eBay, no problem, and it fit, and it fit fine. No muss, no fuss. So, installing your back plate's important. Making sure you plugged, as you can see here, make sure you plug your HDMI cable in the back of the graphics card and not your motherboard. You only want to plug it in the back of your motherboard if your CPU has support for onboard graphics, then it's okay. If not, it's best to have your video signal sent from your video card first, right? And then if by chance you do plug it into the back of the motherboard first, don't worry, it's fine. Power the system down. You're going to get that black screen. I think most of the people I talk to and consult when they hit me up with this problem, if it's a build I build for them, they'll say, oh, well, I show them the system is running and functioning properly before I ship it to them. It's very important that that's the case. And then they'll get it and I'll say, hey, I plugged everything in and it's not working. I'm getting a black screen. I'm like, okay, can I ask you a question? Where did you plug your HDMI cable? And they're like, oh, it's in the back. It's in the top. I like the top of the case in the back of the motherboard. I'm like, bingo. That's your problem. No worries. Just do these steps and you'll be good to go. Right? So we talked about those, those mistakes for those of you who just joined in. And rather you're an experienced builder, feel free to share some of the mistakes you've made or some of the mistakes you may have helped other new builders with. Do feel free to share them here with us who are, if you're here live and if you're here on the replay, definitely feel free, and you made it this far, drop your recommendations or your helpful comments down in the comments, say helpful comments, your valuable comments down in the comment section below, as it can benefit somebody. It can, benefit another member in the community. Oh, let's see. We have Ron Bridges says, finally been able to catch you. What's up, brother? It's good to see you, Myron. Thanks for stopping by. And the funny thing is, we had John stop by, Myron. John stopped by. I'm not sure if he's still here watching, but John stopped by. Scott had just stopped by. I believe he said he had to go. And my mom was here too. So interesting. A lot of support from close friends and family, man. I gotta love it. Gotta appreciate that. And and those of you who are also here in the community that have been long-time members of the channel, like Tricion. I know we have a few others who aren't here, but again, it's me, Paul, and a few of you. If you're here, if you never joined our live stream, welcome. It's also always a fun and good time. We normally have strong, topical themes like this one here, and that's some of the most common mistakes made when building a PC, how to avoid them, to do a little quick refresh. We talked about research, right? The plan won't fail if you plan, or the plan fails if you fail the plan, right? So, talked about research. We talked about, if we switch back here, we talked about installing your backplate first. Once you got over you have the courage to start, you have the courage to finish. So once you're ready to start building, all right, the first step you want to do before you do anything else inside the case, that's install the GD backplate. Save yourself some room. You may ask yourself, do I really need to install this? Is it really worth me having to take the motherboard out, break down the GPU, break down some wires? God forbid if you've already ran some of your cable ties, right? You may not want to do it. To me, it's a huge eyesore. If you don't have the backplate, that's one thing. And I believe I did try to find it for my son's computer, or for my kid's computer. So if they're watching, they're probably like, well, my dad's being a little bit hypocritical right now, because, I couldn't find a replacement backplate, though, for the ASRock B350 motherboard. But, if you're buying your components new, then you want to make sure you install it, you have it. It's a small detail that really complements the rest of the build. And I know you can't see it from this angle, but some backplates even have like a certain design, like MSI's backplates or MSI motherboards have a dragon on the back of it. It's really dope. It's really cool. And then we also talked about how some premium motherboards come with the backplate integrated with the motherboard, so it just eliminates that. Oh, well, I forgot to install the motherboard. No, it comes already, attached to the back of the motherboard. It's a proprietary component of it. You don't even need to install it on the motherboard. You just drop your motherboard in. But right now, you pay for that premium. Unfortunately, it's like on motherboards that are in excess of like $169 on up, or maybe even $200 on up. No, this is not a flex, but normally when I'm shopping for motherboards myself, I'm normally in the high end sector in terms of looking for a motherboard. It's me, Paul says, or Ron Richard says, hey mom, OG OSS crew. Yeah, we had the, for those of you who don't know, we ran a game studio with, and John, Champion Mode 314, and Skitty, and Ron, who are all members, who all helped me run and found the studio. It's me, Paul says, yo, your setup in the back is sick, bro. Thanks, it's me, Paul. So, let me switch back here really fast. So yeah, I mean, this is all, it's most of these parts, these things on the wall we've done videos on, or they have videos are coming up on it. But like, for example, this actually has, I don't know if you can see that there. That's actually a 9900K. So there's actually parts on this shelf still sitting in there that either, are subtle Easter eggs or the content's coming up. But this is a whole, let's get it so this is a whole 9900K in here, brand new, that we're going to come up and do an updated series on my editing rig. But yeah, this is constantly involvement. This is actually one of my favorite set pieces too. Like I love, we're shooting videos, just getting behind here and working behind there. In case we got the TubeBuddy hat, TubeBuddy here. They're not sponsors of the channel yet, because I'm going to reach out to TubeBuddy fam. We're going to do it. But I got the TubeBuddy hat, got the Master Chief. I try to let this be reflective of a little bit of my personality as much as possible, right? Like I got the Halo helmet. Ron Richards, he introduced me to Halo, right? And I borrowed his Halo 3 from him. I borrowed his Halo 3 from him. That's how I was introduced to Halo, and I became a fan ever since he let me borrow his copy on the Xbox 360. But big Halo fan, all the Ryzen CPUs we've done. Some of these parts were some of the parts that I've touched ever, like some of the first videos we've done here on the channel. I got the TubeBuddy mug, as they sent me some swag. It was the first official brand that kind of recognized me as a brand. So, but yeah, awesome stuff. And this is going to continue to evolve. We got the Threadripper CPU box here. Just to name a few, and some other stuff out of place. Of course, we got long time fan here. Look at that, Sonic, right? Shout out to the Sonic, because you gotta come on, Sonic. You got a Sonic. And of course, the ever popular now Vision, because he's one of my favorite Marvel characters in Avengers, right? But I got the Vision collectible going up there too, right? But yeah, and then also an i7 940. Check that out. We did a video on this CPU. I want to revisit this CPU. Right now, the motherboard has the X5675 inside of it, but I want to revisit this CPU, the i7 940. If you can find an X58 motherboard on the low, and by on the low, I mean by a super. If it's over $50, it's borderline not even worth it. But if you can find a motherboard, an X58 motherboard, and this CPU for $20, you got a DDR3. That's all going to be under $70 for all three of those components. And a little bit of fun note, Myron. The motherboard you gifted, this was the CPU that was actually inside of there. A little bit of fun history there. Right now, that motherboard has an X5675, but yeah, the i7 940 was originally in there. Ron says, "Do you watch WandaVision?" So, yeah, me and Mrs. Mod, but me and my wife, that's our thing. We like watching TV shows together, and not a lot of cable, right? But I do watch WandaVision. I have been watching it like every Friday faithfully. I get home and I'm like, all right, boom, come on, let's sit down, let's watch it, let's get some dinner, let's get a drink, and let's sit back and enjoy these quick 22 minutes sometimes, right? Like the episodes fly. But we have been watching them, and it's interesting reveal with Fridays with Agnes being Agatha. A lot of fan theories was already kind of seeing that before. Anyway, but yeah, I do watch WandaVision. I'm curious to see who's all introduced next. I will say when Monica was going to meet her Connect, it being a general, I did not see that coming. But I never seen Captain Marvel, so it is what it is there. But yeah, thanks for pointing that out. It's me, Paul. So it says, Ron says it was borrowed. LOL. Yeah, it's a little bit of inside joke. But yeah, it was borrowed, fam. That's what we're going for. That's what I'm on the record. It was borrowed, right? But it's me, Paul says these days new CPUs and the new GPUs are all out of stock. And I tell you what, that's true, right? Like that's true. And I tell you what, if we go last week, we had checked Micro Center and to see, because Micro Center had Ryzen 5 5600Xs in stock. So if we jump back here, I wanted to switch back here really fast, really fast. We're going to get on. We're going to get back on topic. So, but if we come here, let's check to see what that stock looks like. Because last live stream, towards the end, we looked at what was available, and look at this, 25 plus still in stock. This is 25 plus more than, man, I've ever seen. Like, and especially for this long. So this is more than 10 days that have passed, and we still have plus 25 in stock. That's Ryzen 5 5600X for $299, right? Faster than an 8700K, slightly faster than 9900K, depending on the game, right? But I mean, this is still a pretty good sign that hopefully could change, at least in one of this, one of the areas, right? With starting with CPUs, with stock improving in that area. 5800X, which is to me the CPU to target if you're in a budget excess of over $1,000 and you want a system, that's going to be able to maybe edit your videos, or you're a music producer. I keep forgetting not everybody edits videos with their system. I have a lot of friends, especially in Delaware, that are music producers, and their content creation workflow revolves around producing music. So you still very much want a CPU that has fast cores and actually really fast IPC. That CPU is the 5800X, right? Like the 8-core, 16-thread Zen 3 based CPU. 25 plus in stock. When these CPUs launched, this was not the case. You were hard pressed to find them in this quantity. Now, a few caveats to take into consideration. One, Micro Center does not ship. So I have to go to the store to take advantage of this. So that is one of the ways they're able to maybe, maintain their supply or maintain their stock. But, Micro Center is pretty, if you're here stateside, I'm located on the East Coast of the United States. But if you're stateside, you can get to a Micro Center. Definitely check them out. They're going to have some really good deals. You're going to be able to save some money, because if you want a CPU that has good value for money, that's still, in my opinion, the 9900K. Look at that, $300. This one is brand new, and I bought it off eBay, and I think I paid $319 for it once you factor in shipping. So it was like 300, 305, 310 brand new, but after shipping and taxes, I think I paid like $315. Which, even then, if I went to the Micro Center and bought this, I would still have to pay taxes, and it would come to about the same thing. But I saved myself a little bit of toll money, although they're not open. What am I talking about? Polls aren't open. Toll booths aren't open, I mean. But I did save myself a little bit of mileage and gas. So, but yeah. So there are some CPUs in stock, which we talked about the i5 10600K being a CPU with 6-core 12-thread i5 that was in stock for $189, which is insane. It's like almost for once, minus the motherboard, which you still would pay a little bit, a little premium for on a Z490 motherboard. Intel could be the better platform to go with, depending on what AMD Ryzen CPU is available. Which, if we jump back here, starting with at least a Ryzen 5 3600 would be a good starting point. And as you can see, it's $200. Pair that with a decent, B450 motherboard or B550 motherboard to get ready for Ryzen 5000, and you're about like like 320 bucks for two of your core components: motherboard, CPU, factor in RAM, and you're under $400. Under $400. But yeah, so it's me, Pulse. These CPUs, the stock is getting better. 5950Xs, although really not, you don't need 16 cores and 32 threads for most people. Right, I think 8 cores, 16 threads is a good start, especially if you want to do multiple things with your computer. But if we jump over to GPUs, video cards, this story, it will change. But you got a 1651 in stock, 1662 in stock. If you're located, if you're near Maryland, Parkville, and you need a graphics card, you better run to Micro Center. If you're here watching on the replay, don't run now. Well, I guess run now. Keep the live stream playing in the background. But hey, if you need a graphics card and you're in that area, 1660 is definitely no slouch. That's kind of similar. We use a 1660 Ti, and the best graphics card to build, under $900 graphics card to build in 2021. We use a 1660 Ti, but a 1660 at 315 is with 6 gigabytes of GDDR5. It's not bad. maybe a little about $30-$40 more than what I'd feel comfortable paying for this graphics card. But the GPU situation is still dire. As you can see, even this Micro Center here in Parkville, their most premium graphics card, fam, is the 1660. So yeah, it's a little, the GPU stock is still a little dire, but again, I plan, well, maybe I will do a vlog VOD on that, but Nvidia is set to allegedly re-release RTX 2060s and 1050 Ti. So we'll see how that does for the market. We'll see if those just get bought up and scalped too. Hopefully not, because RTX 2060 is a graphics card I do want to do some upcoming content on, because right now, even if they were in stock, there just aren't any new sub $300 graphics cards available right now. You're either in the 16 series territory or you're in an RTX 2060 category. Han Shlomo, it's good to see you, fam. Han Shlomo, our brother over in China stopped by. Says, hi, fam. Just say hello to all of you. It's good to see you, Han Shlomo. Man, what time is it over in China? I think it's already Sunday for you, huh, fam? It's good to see you, Han Shlomo. Han Shlomo says, just woke up here. Wow. Wow, so it's morning time. It's definitely dark here. It's late night here, man. You're on the late night show with Inside the Lab. No. I'm not that cool, fam. Not yet. But you're on the weekly live Q&A show, which so happens to be late, right? It's funny because my son said, Dad, why is your live streams late? I'm like, they're not late. He said, well, they used to be earlier. I'm like, I know, but then I thought most people said that they were too early. So again, I'm going to toy with the idea, okay, especially coming up in the summertime, about a two live shows, right? One more podcast centric and the other more show centric and informative, like this one here. And then of course our pop-up live streams thrown in there. Tricion says, yo man, yo, what's up to Han Slow-Mo? Yo, Han Slow-Mo. And Han Slow-Mo says it's 8 o'clock a.m. Buenos dias from Los Estados Unidos. That's not China, and I don't know how to say that in Chinese. But I do know how to say it in Spanish, fam. Right? Hola, buenos dias. All right, but moving on, Han Slow-Mo. We're talking about Han Slow-Mo. I know you're another experienced builder like Tricion, and part of my ignorance, if you're here on the live stream, if you're here on the replay, and you do build, or if you're here right now and you're an experienced builder, part of my ignorance. But if you are, tell me some or any experiences mistakes that you've made along the way, or that you helped other people when they ran into those same issues, right? Because that's what we're talking about in this weekly live Q&A show, right? Some of the most common mistakes made when building a PC and how to avoid them, right? Ron says later works best for me, right? And I thought that's where, and I'm going to release a poll, and it'll probably go out to or email news. Those of you who are signed up for our newsletter, you'll get a link to participate in the poll, because I do want to get a general idea if we can get maybe 20 votes to kind of see what's good, like morning, midday, or late night, somewhere along those three categories. And then even if one's the obvious, majority favor, I will still consider the other time dates, trying to work those into another live show or another live stream. But in this live stream, again, we are talking about some of the most common mistakes made when building a PC and how to avoid them. Let's catch up really fast, right, before we continue on and boogie right on down the block, right? But we talked about first step, right, and that's researching your parts. A lot of experienced builders know that you should do a great amount of due diligence researching your parts before you buy. Even if you are an experienced builder, times change, technology changes. Nothing stays the same in this industry, in this niche, right? They say, when's the best time to build a computer? 2 days ago. Because the technology changes so fast, and you have to literally keep up with new technologies, DDR5, PCIe 4.0, right? New chipsets compatibility, right? Or new chipset bringing in new features that also have to be on the CPU. You want to do your research before you even click buy or check out. You want to do your research, right? Research is important, right? We talked about, like D mentioned earlier in the live show. We said that, your plan didn't fail. You just failed to plan, right? If you got the courage to start, you got the courage to finish. And starting actually starts with researching. It can be intimidating, right? We talked about in the beginning of this live show that, building a PC can feel like a daunting and painstakingly confusing process. It can be. And that process starts with doing your research, learning about the motherboard, learning about the CPU, learning about which component is going to factor the most when delivering an experience that you are expecting. Rather that's high refresh rate competitive based 1080p gaming, 240 plus hertz, mouthful. We talked about refresh rates last week's live stream. If you didn't see that conversation, don't leave now. Wait till this live show ends. Watch last week's conversation. I believe it was last week where we talked about refresh rates and how important that is. Right? You got to do a high due diligence on researching your parts before you click check out. It's super important that you do that. You can take a preventative action or preventative measure to eliminate any and all mistakes before you get to the build process, right? Before you get to the process that requires you to have enough courage to start and have enough courage to finish, right? Fear, doubt and fear are huge confidence killers, right? You say, "Oh, I can't do this," right? And when I'm talking to young kids, I tell them, don't say can't. Don't say something is too hard. It's too hard to build a PC. I don't want to build a PC. It's too hard. Lab, come on. You know what you talk about. This guy. It's too hard. What's hard? A rock is hard, right? Literally. The material, the compounds that make up a rock, it's literally millions of minerals compounded into one solid object, right? A rock. You throw it at glass, the glass is going to shatter. A rock cannot overcome being hard. You can overcome the process of building a PC though. That's not hard, it's just challenging. There's a difference, right? The floor is hard, the ground is hard, right? But building a PC is not hard, it's challenging. So that's why early in the live stream I mentioned that it can feel daunting, it can feel like a lot to take in. But rest assured, it's a huge confidence builder. Once you're like, okay, I understand the chipset I want to go over. Like, I understand if I want to upgrade in the future to a Ryzen 5000 CPU because that get that 19% IPC uplift, I want to make sure I upgrade into a 500 series chipset, and that way I can take advantage of other features like AMD's version of FPS boost and their memory boost tools you can enable in the BIOS, right? You want to do your research. You want to make sure your graphics card has enough VRAM to power the resolution you want to play at. If it's 1080p, 4GB VRAM, FYI, in case you're curious. If you want to game at 1080p, 4GB VRAM buffer is about all you really need for 1080p. And that's even at modest settings, like medium to high. It really depends on the game, because some games are a little bit more graphically demanding than others. We used Alien Isolation as an example, which if you weren't, if you're here on live show right now and you missed our pop-up live show, I left the replay up. Don't leave now, please. Don't leave now. Hang around because we got a lot of good information that's about to come up. But on that live show, we talked about some of the reasons why you like to play video games, and just looking at that, using Alien Isolation as an example, right? Because we talked about building around the games you want to play. You want to make sure you do your research and do just that. Prepare yourself to play the games that you want to play at a respectable frame rate. Because playable to me, I say this a lot, this may sound repetitive, but playable to me may not be playable to Tricion, may not be playable to Ron, which no shade, Myron, but I know you play on console. So, a playable frame rate to you may be 30 FPS or, 60 FPS depending on the game if it's a first-person shooter, right? Maybe 900p, 60 FPS is comfortable. Maybe that's playable to you. It's playable. It could be playable to a lot of people, right? But for maybe high-end users that want a little more, maybe they want a sharper native resolution. Maybe they want FPS beyond. Maybe they want an unlocked frame rate, which is something you just don't get on consoles. Which we're not going to talk about that with consoles, right? We talked about consoles a lot in the past couple live streams. We get it. It's custom hardware, custom OS for a general custom audience, right? PCs have character. Consoles serve a purpose. It's the general word usage. I keep changing the saying, but the context of the quote remains the same, right? PCs, there's so much more to a PC than just playing games, right? You have your case. We talked about if I buy 5 PS5 and I gave them all away to everybody, 5 people in this live stream, how dope would that be? I wish I had 5 PS5s to give away. But if I gave away 5 PS5s right now on this live stream, or Xbox X's, because I know we got some Microsoft fans in the house, But if I gave 5 Xbox Series X's away, we all are going to have the same experience. But if I said, hey, I'm going to build 5 members of the audience that are here right now. This is rhetorical, by the way. But I'm going to build you five. I'm going to build you 5 PCs. Your budget is about the same price of an Xbox Series X. Let's just say $600, right? Scalper war aside right now, because essentially it is a war with scalpers. Um, you know, each one of those 5 PCs would be different. The budget would be the same. The PCs would be different. Arguably, the performance frame rate output would even be different, because let's say Tricion's PC needs to be suited to develop music and he doesn't really want to game. He may casually game, but his focus is producing music. Let's say Myron says, nope, I just want to get off work, go home, play games. Right? Let's say Han Shlomo says, I'm a content creator. I need my PC to render videos, maybe even stream and encode games at the same time, do a little bit of both. Right? So each one of those PCs, and let's say the fourth person is a student and the fifth person just needs a computer. Each one of those PCs are going to be different because each one of our needs and expectations are different. But with the console, it's cut and dry. They're all the same. This is why PCs have a purpose, or consoles have a purpose. I keep getting it confused. That's why consoles have a purpose, for that reason alone. This is why PCs have character, because it's really about the character, the personal, and the personal computer. Tricion says Minecraft uses, let me get caught up in the chat. Sorry, there's like about a 10-second delay. Tricion says Minecraft uses every single byte of my RAM it can. Is that also with any mods installed, Tricion? And Han Shlomo says, fully agree, building a PC seems intimidating, but it's like Lego for grown-ups. LOL, Han Shlomo says. And, I never understood that until I got back into modding and building. Like, I never really dabbled in the build process when I was younger. I just pretty much wanted my PC to work out of the box, plug and play, go, right? But I didn't understand that concept until I started building myself. And it's highly addictive, honestly. It's like once you build once, you may want to do it again. And that's perfectly fine. Get familiar with that process, because it's going to help you with maintaining your system, right? And keeping it clean, and like replacing the thermal paste in the future, or finishing any future upgrades. Tricion says, yeah, with SUS, PTGI shaders, and a lot of mods. So yeah, okay, so understandable. I'm about to say, usually when a game is heavily modded, you're going to see a lot of RAM allocation, like a lot of RAM, not even really usage, but just like a lot of RAM allocation. I saw that with Skyrim, which even at 3440 by 1440p, my heavily modded Skyrim, it's like 12 gigabytes of RAM is used. I'm like borderline there, depending on what system I'm playing on. If it's my main rig here, right? If it's Snow White, that's the name of my editing rig. If it's Snow White, this only has 16 gigabytes of RAM. So when we do our 9900K, build video, and I kind of show the value of this $300 CPU, I do plan on maybe upgrading up to 32 gigabytes, right? I think the time has come, especially with me wanting to do more streams and to stream more games here with the community. But yeah, good stuff. And moderator welcomes in Thunder. And I see we had a few more people. If you're just now joining in, right, just to get you caught up. You were in the middle of us catching up more people who joined in. But if you're just now joining in, we are talking about some of the most common mistakes made when building a PC and how to avoid them. We talked about researching. That's kind of what I just got done going on a tangent about, and how the significance and the importance of researching your parts to prevent any mistakes before you start the build process. And then when you are ready to build up enough courage to start, do remember, you have enough courage to finish, fam. You can do this. Like Han Shlomo said, it may seem, intimidating at first, but I tell you what, once you get in and you start to feel those parts and you're working with them, just take your time. That's something we're going to talk about again. Just take your time and you will be fine. Han Shlomo says, or Tricion says, when I receive my money, Epic owes me. I'm going to buy 32 gigabyte RAM too. Oh, well, you know what? Epic needs to come on and pay up, man, and take care of the fam, because it ain't like Epic is hurting. They got it, right? Epic definitely got the coin to take care of the creators. I do believe, Tricion, you have a creator code. So, yeah, Epic needs to come on. They need to get with that. Take care of the lab fam. Han Slomo says, depends on personal expectation. I just built a PC for my wife's nephew, 3400G. So that's a CPU that has onboard graphics, where we talked about, right? Where it's okay to plug your HDMI cable into the back of the motherboard if you don't have a dedicated graphics card and you have a CPU that has onboard graphics, which I believe the 3400G has Vega 11 as a Radeon Vega 11 graphics on board, but a 5500 XT on top of that, 16 gigabytes of RAM, and for testing I tried Cyberpunk 2077, 1440p medium sets run around 45 FPS, great value. And you know what? At 1440p, that's really good because Cyberpunk isn't, even now, all the updates is very frustrating and still very much not a well optimized game. And I even left it in the RTX 3090 benchmarks, that just because regardless of how you feel about it, it's a great game to look at, but it very much is shallow and hollow, right? But yeah, that's still, I mean, that's incredible performance, right? 5500 XT. Before the 5500 XT started disappearing, I was recommending the 5500 XT, and I believe that was even before the RX 6000 series GPU dropped. But there's a GDDR5 global shortage right now, so it's just one of the things we got to deal with, fam, until the market is able to stabilize. We're really not sure when that is, but hey, it's getting there one way or another. I said we have 15 likes, fam. I tell you what, if we get to 20 likes, I'll sing that song I wrote. Remember I told you guys before I wrote a song? I would sing a commercial song, but I don't want to get copyright claim. So the rap I did was a rap I wrote when I consider myself like a rapper, and also wrote a song. If we get to 20 likes, I'll maybe sing the first bar, right? Or I'll try to sing. I'm not a singer, but I consider myself to be able to harmonize. I don't know how I sound on the mic, but for a little fun, if we get to 20 likes, yes, I will sing it. I will let you guys and gals have it. Bad Habit says, "What's up, homies? Bad Habit made it. Bad Habit is good to see you. Bad Habit. Bad Habit, welcome, as we're talking about, some of the most common mistakes made and how to avoid them when building a gaming PC. Bad Habit, this is a great topic for you. Wow, we jumped up to 19 streams, or 19 likes. Should I bump it up and say 21, or would that be that wouldn't be cool, would it? And Polecat says, "Hi, welcome Polecat123. You and Bad Habit, you came in a perfect time. I welcome you both. That it's good to see you. Welcome to the live show. Welcome to our weekly live Q&A." Bad Habit says, "Is it R&B?" Yeah, I guess it's a little bit of R&B. Triceon says, "That was fast." I know, right? Something ain't right. I call foul. I don't know. Something's not right. I don't know. And Thunder says it's 20. Okay, I gotta see it on my end. My end, I got 19. But yeah. So, and again, those of you who are joining in, I see we have Amaze Joel, right? Now, okay, Amaze Joel. Joel, welcome to the weekly live Q&A, fam. I believe we haven't had the opportunity to do this here, to talk. And me, I believe your first time. This is your first time coming out and chatting with us. If you have any questions about this topic, right, we're discussing some of the most common mistakes made when building a PC, and how, and most importantly, how to avoid them. We talked about, researching your parts. It's always important. I recommend you research your parts. And we talked about, once you build up enough courage to start, you have enough courage to finish, and then you're ready to say, jump into the build process. And when you're in the build process, right, one of the first things you want to make sure you're doing is installing the backplate. As you can see here in my supplemental video, you want to make sure you're installing the backplate, right? What I recommend is throw the backplate right there in the center. As you can see that little square cutout, right? That's where the rear of the motherboard is going to be the house at. And if you have to install your cooler, you'll put the backplate of the cooler back on that way. But throw your CPU cooler right down there, or throw the backplate. Sorry, don't throw your CPU cooler back there. Throw your backplate back there, and you won't forget to install it before installing your motherboard, right? It's just a pro tip. It's what I recommend. I've only done it twice. I've only ever forgotten to install the backplate twice. And ironically, they were not for personal builds. They were for client builds. So it's not like I could have just said, oh well, they won't notice this large cutout that's look like it's missing something. No, they won't notice that. Nope. Excuse me. I've done it twice, and it's a pain in the butt. I would use another word, but this is a family-friendly oriented environment here, fam. Bring your kids, bring your wife, and just come out and have a good time. But it's a huge pain in the butt, though, because you have to essentially go all the way back to step one just to install the back. There is no way to finagle that. You literally have to reverse engineer the process. Take all the cables apart, uninstall the graphics card, unplug your CPU cables, PC, all those things. Unscrew your motherboard, take it all the way out, and start all the way back in. Han Slomo says, just watch The Verge build a PC, and you got most of common mistakes while building. And The Verge, the guy at The Verge, man, he received a lot of flack for that. And it's very hard to understand what The Verge was trying to accomplish there. Because any experienced builder at any point of producing that video should have stopped to be like, oh, whoa, that's bad building advice, bro. No, they should do this, or whoa, no, you don't do that, and whoa, no, you don't do this. I don't know if it was a parody or were they seriously trying to give you tips and advice on how to build a PC. Now, a lot of larger YouTubers, right? Bitwit Kyle being one of them, had got a strike. The bad one, right? The 1, 2, 3, and your channels no longer exist. He got a strike for reacting to The Verge's video. The Verge was being real petty, and they were running around just, if you badmouth their video, they put a claim in, man. It was not good. As YouTube kind of sided with The Verge on that. So I'm not going to bash what The Verge did more so, other than, if I just don't recommend watching The Verge's video on how to build a PC. Triceon says, wait, did it get striked? I do. At the time, Kyle Bitwood's video did, because like Jay, you guys are all familiar with the larger ones, right? I'm not going to name drop, but a lot of the larger ones came together to Kyle's defense to try to help him out. But Kyle had got a strike for reacting to The Verge video and like poking fun at what The Verge did in that video, and it just did not go over well for Bitwood Kyle. So yeah, but yeah, I think of The Verge too. And you know what? I didn't watch the whole video. I watched like maybe one reaction video, and I said, oh gosh, were they serious? It's almost like they were doing everything wrong, everything that you would advise not to do. And The Verge is a large publisher, so there's some risk involved with that, as they're giving just flat out wrong and bad advice. And The Verge is a very large publisher, so say with that, do with that with thy will. But Bad Habit says forgetting the backplate on a mini ITX is not a good idea, fam. Forgetting the backplate on any form factor is probably not a good idea. It's a huge time killer, right? It could be a huge time killer to have to go back and almost essentially start at step one. That's during the build process, right? That's during the process of after you've built the courage up to build it yourself. You already ordered your parts. They're already in the mail. You're ready to rock and roll. You get to that part, and let's say you gotta backtrack now, and let's say you mess up. Let's say you accidentally, force a cable or yank something out, and because you made that mistake, it could cost you money. Remember, during the build process, it's during that process that can be the most costly. All right, that's part of the process that could cost you the most money, is the mistakes you make during the build process. So getting caught up, we talked about installing the backplate. Throw the backplate in the center of the case before you install your motherboard, right? Research your parts prior to that. Hook up your HDMI cable. Plug your HDMI cable in the back of the motherboard instead of the graphics card. Now, like Han Shlomo may mention that he did a build for their nephew. I believe it was 3200G. So that CPU has onboard graphics of Radeon Vega 11 graphics. So it's okay to plug the HDMI cable into your CPU if your CPU has support for onboard graphics. That's almost all non-F-based Intel CPUs, right? And most A-series AMD CPUs. But if you have a dedicated graphics card, it's better to get your video signal first, or have your video signal out first, be registered with the video card, okay? It's just going to eliminate any optimization issues you may have during the way, or any, signal issues or instabilities you may run into along the way. It won't necessarily ruin the process, especially with modern parts. You just switch it over and restart over. It's one of the most common mistakes I find myself helping new builders with resolving. But yeah, all good stuff. So again, if you're just now joining in, welcome to the live show. We're going to move on because one of the other mistakes I see, as Hans Shlomo says, forgot thermal paste on the CPU only once. Easy to fix, but huge impact. Oh yeah, it, and ironically, like, you can turn on your CPU, right? Even let the system idle, like with the with the heat sink on the cooler. Let's say it's an air cooler, for example. The heat sink alone, and so long as the fan is plugged in, it should be enough to say passively cool the CPU without it like frying out and dying. But the moment that CPU goes on a load beyond just posting to the Windows home screen, you could be looking at a fried chip. So it's a good thing, Hans Slomo, you caught that before, going on and say, hey, I forgot to install thermal paste. And on the subject of thermal paste, you don't want a little and you don't want a lot, but you want just enough. And that's normally under the category of about a pea size amount. You only need a pea size amount, especially with most Intel and AMD based CPUs. AMD, the Threadripper line of CPUs is a little different. But for just your standard, your standard AM4 socket or AM3 socket, or, Intel's LGA 1200 socket, or 1155 or 1156 socket, any standard consumer CPU, P size is going to be enough. Again, I mentioned this earlier in the live stream. If your cooler comes with factory paste and you don't have replacement thermal paste, it's fine, fam. Don't beat yourself over about it, right? I left the factory thermal paste on the $900 bill we did to prove this point exactly, that you're still going to get temperatures that are well within spec, right? Going with aftermarket thermal paste is especially important if you plan on overclocking, which in most cases you wouldn't do on an air cooler, especially the stock air cooler, because they have low TDPs. As I think the Wraith Spire supports the 65 watt TDP, something to that extent. So you really wouldn't want to overclock on an air cooler anyway, and water transfers heat more efficiently than air. So I recommend overclocking on a water cooler anyway, an AIO. But yeah, that's all you need. But thermal paste definitely important. But most new, especially if your cooler is new, chances are it's going to have the factory paste on there. But if you brought your own factory paste and you plan for that, then use some Esparol, wipe off the factory paste from the cooler, and then apply a pea-sized amount. Non-conductive thermal paste is your best bet to go in case something spills over into the motherboard. If it does, just take a Q-tip and clean it off real gently and real nicely. Just try your best to avoid that. That's another mistake within itself. That's why you only really want to use a pea-size amount, right? Because as you place the cooler down, it's going to spread anyway. It's going to spread out. So that's why you don't want a lot. It can also be difficult to take the cooler off too, should you need to service the CPU, or when you're ready to replace the thermal paste, which is something you really don't have to do. Maybe every 5 to 7 years, depending on how hot it gets in your area, what you use your CPU for, its general usage, those other factors to take into consideration. But thermal paste usually has a long lifespan, right? You can get away with not having to frequently replace your thermal paste, unless you like overclocking. And Lab Fam, y'all know how much I like overclocking. No, that gets me excited. But then we talked about plugging your HDMI cable in the back of your motherboard, graphics card. And the other issue too, another mistake, I guess this is like, I guess, an afterthought, and that's when you build your PC. Most of us have routers in our home, but not a lack of a network adapter, or not having a network connection, right? And the inability to connect to the internet to install any and all necessary driver updates, but most importantly, install some games. Believe it or not, is a mistake that new builders run into. They don't take into consideration. They just automatically assume, especially if you're coming from consoles, that oh well, my console has built-in Wi-Fi. Why wouldn't my computer have built-in Wi-Fi? Oh, it costs more, so it should have it should have this feature that I want. Well, no, believe it or not all motherboards come with Wi-Fi, and even then, it's not a reliable solution, right? You can use a PCIe network card or a USB adapter. I recommend the former over the latter. But either way, both of them are an affordable solution if you want to connect to the internet wirelessly. They range either one, a PCI network card or the USB adapter to connect to the internet. They range from $20 to $40. So it's not a huge roadblock. It just sucks if you build your PC and you're like, oh shoot, I can't connect it to the internet. Now you say, well, I have an Ethernet cable, but let's take this into consideration. Where is your router located right now? Like, you don't even have to answer the question, but I'm willing to bet chances are it's not necessarily less than 5 feet, 10 feet away from your computer, right? Especially if you have a large family and you got to share that internet bandwidth. Chances are your computer won't be able to have a wire connection, right, to your router. Now, a network card, a PCIe network card, an internal network card, it's okay for single player games, average daily usage, but it's not ideal for multiplayer games or streaming at higher resolutions, right? You may experience some lag in your multiplayer games, right? It's not a viable long-term solution. And repeat, especially if you plan on playing multiplayer games. Now, most motherboards do, though, come with support for LAN or Ethernet cable, right? So you can run a wire connection. This could be a challenge, once again, depending on where your router is located, right? But this is the best case scenario for most case usages, right? And you can get a 20 or 25 plus foot Ethernet cable for less than $20, right? Now, I will say this, there's links down in the description box below. Let me switch back here, but there's links down in the description box below with, Amazon. They are affiliate links, so I do receive a small commission should you purchase those products. But check out some of the options I picked out down in the description box below after this live stream, should you be in the need for a wireless network card, right? Internal or external or what have you. Because if you're a frequent builder, even if you build PCs for clients, right? And you have a large area, maybe you want to get to the point to just install Windows, get all necessary updates out the way. You want to install Windows, like I said, get chipset driver updates, graphic driver updates. Even if you just want to do this for your clients, having a USB network adapter card can be an economical solution for you. You just plug it in, sign into your network, you do all your necessary updates, boom. You don't have to worry about bringing your router close to your device or your machine. Now you can take it to the next level and say, you know what, that's all good and dandy, but listen, I'm ready to run, cables all throughout my home. It's a future project that I too plan to do, although my network adapter or my cable modem is essentially less than 10 feet away from my computer. I use a wired connection for obvious reasons because we stream games and we have this beautiful live show here, the host for this lovely audience. But I use a wired connection myself, and it's what I highly recommend. So if you need a long Ethernet cable, don't worry, fam, I got you covered. I've already picked out a few for you. Don't leave the live stream now, though. But at the end of this show, definitely check those out. If you're on the replay and you're in the market for one, I also highly recommend you check those options out, right? Installing a PCI network adapter or network card is as simple as just plug it into the PCIe lane, going into your Windows, and connect it to your network. Boom, easy to go. So yeah. I mean, it could be, an often overlooked issue. But if you're in an area where you can't wire your computer and your motherboard doesn't have support for, it doesn't support a wireless connection, it's like, what do you do next? Your computer is essentially useless without a connection to the internet, right? To play your games. And some games even require you to be connected to, to have an internet connection. It can be really frustrating, but you know what? It's part of their way that they fight, piracy and things like that. But so it's an unfortunate inconvenience, but what are you going to do? We're going to just roll with the punches, fam, right? And make the best out of a frustrated scenario, but go with a wired connection whenever possible. Okay, you have to take that into consideration with your build process, wherever your main station is going to be, wherever you plan to get set up at. If you're able to have your router or your network card or your router as close as possible to run a wired connection, the difference is going to be day and night, especially with you downloading your games. And you want to download a lot of games off the bat as soon as you get your computer going. It's one of the things that I know from a lot of the clients I talk to. that they're excited to do, right? They're excited to just say, you know what, I'm ready to render. I want to play some Warzone, or I want to play some Fortnite, right? Like, shout out to the Fortnite players. I've been playing here with my family recently. It's fun times. I'm a little late to the party, but yeah. So you need to take into consideration how you're going to connect to the internet in general terms, right? Take into consideration how you plan on connecting to the internet and which option is the best case scenario for your general usage, right? Is that a wireless connection? Maybe you just want to download some games, play some Cyberpunk 2077, play some, Alien Isolation, some casual single player games, what have you, or you want to get competitive. Now, if you want to get competitive, fam, you definitely should be going with the wire connection. XLR Gaming says, word up. Hey, word up. Out. Oh, Cliff, did you make 20 likes, Cliff? Cliff, if you came and made 20 likes, fam, earlier in the live stream, I said if we got to 20 likes, I'd bust out and try to harmonize a song I wrote years ago. If I remember the lyrics, y'all can't flame me too hard, though, in the comments. I see we hit 20 likes, so, right, we hit 20 likes, so I guess a deal's a deal, right, so long as everybody don't dip out from my horrible singing. But, excuse me. Yeah, I said if we got 21, awesome. I said if we got the 20 likes though, I said I'd bust out and sing a song that I wrote. I'm not an R&B singer, but I did try to write a song. So, all right, let's. XLR Gaming says, let's hear those golden pipes. They're more like bronze, fam. And Ron says, let's hear his sheets. Wow, he's throwing in some of my old rap handles, S. Dot and sheets. All right, let me get the tone in my head. All right, 1, 2. First you try your hardest and then you start to learn that once you smell the fire, you start to feel the burn. Stuck on autopilot with nowhere else to turn. Decision wake and shattered. Oh, I forgot the lyrics. Shattered what you earn. Time is like a virus, it spread like a disease. I can't remember the lyrics. Oh, man. You know what? I should start over, right? All right, let me see if I can let's try one more time. Okay, here we go. Hang with me. This is live, fam. This is a song I wrote. What? Hey, Mrs. Ma, can I get a little help? Maybe 10 years ago almost. I don't even think my youngest child was born yet when I wrote this song. Or she was just born. All right, let me see. All right. First you try your hardest and then you start to learn that once you smell the fire, you start to feel the burn. Stuck on autopilot with nowhere else to turn. Decision making shattered what you earn. Time is like a virus, it spread like a disease. Resulted on our goals, conclusion to a dream. No, I'm not afraid, regardless what you see. 'Cause everything you saw is not everything it seems. Once you are apart, then apart is how you feel. You'll run out of your hope, but you won't run out of will. Forever isn't long when the end is what you feel. We bear the scars of time 'cause they're never meant to heal. Right? I mean, Ron said you got that dark-skinned Prince flow. Nice, right? I know. Yeah, Tracy says how amazing. Yeah, guys, I wrote that song years ago. But I think my daughter was probably either not even born or she was a baby. I wrote that song. It was about my time as a game developer, ironically. But yeah, good stuff. I like that. I kind of like the beat. It's like first you try your hardest and then you start to learn. And once you smell the fire, you start to feel the burn. Stuck on autopilot with nowhere else to turn. Decision waking, chatting, and that's I kind of forget the the rest. It's been a while though. It's been a while. XLR Gaming has the flames, and Ron says XLR Gaming says the goat. Ron says good job. Thanks, fam. I do appreciate it, y'all. It's nerve wracking because it's singing. I'm not a singer, but I'm trying to remember the lyrics. And I wrote other songs, and y'all ain't ready for it. And I doubt we'll get to 30, but I'll do another if we get to 30. But we're pressing right on into the third content block, so I doubt it. And I see we had a few more people join in at an awkward time with me singing. They're like, "Wait a minute! I clicked on this link because I saw a handsome fella pointing to a live Q&A thumbnail about common mistakes made and how building a PC and some of the common mistakes, how to avoid them and what have you. I come in and this guy singing, talking about stuck on autopilot with nowhere else to turn, and they're like, wait a minute, whoa, get back into building a PC. But yeah, welcome those of you who just joined in. You came at a fun time. We like to have fun here, fam. It's always, we talk about building PCs and it's all about, capturing them frame rates, but at the same time, here in this community, it's all about having fun at the end of the day. And that's one of the things we try to take pride with in this live show. And that's just having a good time and fellowshipping with the community. If you have any questions about the topic, which is how to some of the most common mistakes made some of the most common mistakes made when building a PC and how to avoid them. If you have any questions about the build process along the way, just let us know. We have a few experienced builders here in the chat. If you're on the fence about getting into PC gaming, this live stream is for you, fam. Because I tell you what, right? It's the journey of 1,000 steps, or the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. That one step is researching your parts, right? Get into that build process. If you have enough courage, you could build up enough courage to start. You could build up enough courage to finish. Point blank, period, right? Excuse me. XLR Gaming says, just picked up a new laptop, fam. Yeah, I saw over on your Twitter, right? I believe you went with the RTX 2070 because it had more VRAM, right? And lower power draw than the laptop variant with the RTX 3060. I found that interesting, but really not surprised. And either way, not a bad deal. Not a bad deal at all. Awesome stuff. Han Shlomo says, great performance, brother. Anyone else in the fam here make or made music? That great question. Do please share. I know Triceon has a pretty what's happening SoundCloud. That's old school talk there. Look, Triceon's on the young. I think he's one of our youngest viewers we have here in the community. But that's an older thing there. But Triceon has a pretty what's happening SoundCloud, and I know he's published some music on his channel. And XLR Gaming says 2070 Super with 10th generation Intel. Ooh, nice. Blazing fast laptop and awesome mobile performance for sure. Good stuff. Yeah, I'll probably be in the market for a laptop here in 2021. Although I don't really go anywhere. Most of my workflow still very much involves right here in my in the lab, but we do plan on expanding space here and getting a larger home for the 2021. So that's going to be awesome as we move. And on a super side note, I can't wait to share that experience of moving with you guys. Like, we're going to create it. It's going to be a whole documentary series. Not documentary series, but it's going to be like a series from just breaking down this setup and hopefully getting set up into the new space when that happens. But it's going to be a little while from now. But I do plan on expanding the space, so I will need more space to edit and work when I'm always not here and at the primary setup. And yeah, XR Gaming says RTX 2070 Super with 10th generation Intel. Yep, we may mention. Han Shlomo says played bass guitar in a metal band like ages before. Nice. That's awesome, man. Like, I love all variations of music, like rock, maybe not country. It has to be the right style, but rock, alternative, punk. I like all different variations of music, right? But that's awesome, man. That's awesome. Maybe you can mention or maybe shoot me some links, Han Shlomo, to where we can maybe hear some of your band's previous work, even if it was ages before, right? Music is just one of the sounds that never age, right? Music that came out 20 years ago with sounds just as what's happening now that it did 20 years ago, right? Music is just one of those sounds that don't age. So yeah, Han Shlomo, if you can, shoot me a link over on Twitter, right? Maybe we can get, listen to some of your band's old music. Which, shameless plug here, if you're not following me on Twitter yet, I highly recommend you join us over there. The party is always going. That conversation is always going over there. XLR Gaming says, hi Han Shlomo, nice to see you here. I know, right, Cliff? It's been a while since we had Han Shlomo be able to brace our live chat. It is good to have Han Shlomo here. We got a couple new members of the audience that had tuned in too. I'm not sure if they're still hanging around, but shout out to the new people who did, the new viewers who did come out and greet us and let us know that they are here. We do welcome and appreciate them being here as well. And XLR Gaming says, I love classic country and western. Johnny Cash, Hank Williams, Willie Nelson. Yeah, I love Johnny Cash. I would sing Hurt, right? if we, I might get copy strike. I don't know, but it'd be worth it. But if we get to 30 likes, I'll sing "Hurt." Johnny Cash's "Hurt." I hurt myself today. Yeah, I know the song. I'll sing it. If we get to 30 likes, I'll sing Johnny Cash's "Hurt." Maybe just like the first verse, just to possibly avoid a copyright strike. And Willie Nelson, all good choices there. Yeah, I mean, I love rap. Obviously, I love rap. I love old school rap. I love hip hop. Right. I love, I love rock. I love alternative. Big Nirvana fan. Older stuff too. Rolling Stones, AC/DC. I like a wide variety of music. And when I'm editing and creating thumbnails, listening to music and getting set up, or even when I'm benchmarking and I don't need the audio for the production, I know I'm almost 100% of the time listening to music, right? Like I'm playing a game, but it's objective. I'm playing it objective based. Like I'm trying to get to point A to point B and repeat those same steps to ensure that the benchmark numbers are representative as close as possible to the performance you will expect as a consumer. But normally, I almost certainly always have headphones playing on or listening to music in the background. All good stuff. But yeah, if we get to 30 likes, I'll sing a little bit of Johnny Cash because Johnny Cash has an amazing voice. He really does. But yeah, all good stuff. And I like when you guys and gals share these things in the community. Again, our live show doubles as a live Q&A, and unlike most popular YouTubers or unpopular opinion, unlike other YouTubers, I like to do my Q and I like to answer the questions as they come. I don't want to save them to the end. People come in live streams. Not everybody can hang around towards the end. Maybe they want their question answered before they leave. So even if it's not related to the topic, if it's something you have just a question for myself, please feel free. Like, what kind of music do I listen to, or where am I from? What are some of my pet peeves? Maybe I'll share some of those with you, or just keep the conversation open. Even if it's something you want to share about yourself with me. But I was plugging in the Twitter. Give me a follow over at Twitter at Inside the Lab YT and Instagram. Once you follow me, get my attention, mention me, comment on and say like, hey, I'm hashtag LabFam over from the channel giving you a follow. I will follow you back because I want to follow your timeline as much as you want to follow mine. I want to see what's going on in your life as much as you want to know what's going on in mine. Cliff says, question, which Cliff, if you're watching, if you're listening and not able to see the chat, but Cliff is XLR Gaming. Cliff says, question, do you like seafood? The wife and I are about to eat crawfish and oysters. Wow, pretty exotic. So I am not the biggest seafood person. I like shrimp though, but not as much. I mean, shrimp to me, I probably eat it 3 times a year, literally, and normally it's for Mrs. Mod. If she cooks it, cooks it steamed or whatever. But I like shrimp. Some like crab cakes I'll eat. It's ironic because the state I live in, Maryland, they're like known as it's like the crab state or whatever, known for the Maryland crab or whatever. But not lazy, but I'm very picky. My mom fam was on the live stream earlier, which was dope. I'm not sure if she's still here lurking, but if she's not, but my mom would always get mad at me because she would buy crabs and I would waste probably about 80% of the meat. 80% of the contents of the crab because I would just break the legs off, bite whatever meat. Pretty much, if it was visible, I ate it. But if it was not visible, I was not crawling and chucking and chiving just to get to a little bit of meat. So, not really big on seafood, but I will eat shrimp. I will eat crab cakes and, the occasional fish. It's just really depends on how it's cooked, But, I don't shy away from it, though. Interesting question, Cliff. Thanks. Keep them coming, fam. Keep them coming. Han Solo says, I also started a new build using the Fantex Evolve Shift Air. Ooh, gorgeous case. I love that case. Man, we talked about cases last week. I love Fantex case, especially the Evolve Shift Air. I don't have a need to build in it because I'm all cased out, man. I have more cases than I can do builds in at this point. But I do like the Fantex Evolve Shift Air. Nice choice. And Han Shlomo says, keep the fan posted via Twitter and Instagram. Yeah, so and with our Instagram, I like to try to curate behind the scenes content and share some of the contents of some of the upcoming content. Sorry, I almost couldn't talk. But I like to share some of the upcoming content with the community over there on Instagram. And Twitter is Twitter is nice because Twitter I feel like is like a constantly fluid conversation. Right, and I highly recommend that you turn your notifications on Twitter. It really helps to be instantly notified, especially when I tweet out links about, hey, we're going live. I know last week, Han Shlomo, we did a pop-up live stream. That was fun times. XLR Gaming was there, Triceon was there, Tiger Nation. We had a lot of regulars, and that was dope because I didn't plan the live stream. I didn't promote the live stream. I didn't market the live stream. I scheduled it 5 minutes before it started, and just popped up and said, "What's happening, YouTube and the internet? Terrence here. We are back inside the lab." I didn't do all that. I probably should have, but I didn't do all that. But we just popped up, and went live. And so the notification went out to a lot of people. And if you're subscribed, and especially here on the channel, you definitely want to make sure that you, one, give the stream a like. If you want to hear me sing Johnny Cash and you haven't yet liked it, give the stream a like. And subscribe if you haven't yet to the channel, right? We have a lot of fun, interesting content coming up, especially in the live streaming sector. And XLR Gaming says, love Fantex, Han Slomo. I'm on Fantex also. Yeah, I mean, Fantex has some really, really nice, like, futuristic, minimalistic cases, right up there with long lines of like some of the Lian Lee cases. Awesome stuff though. Awesome. All right, so jumping back over here. All right, we talked about GPU stock, but we're not talking about that. No. We talk about the build process. Now, here's another important question you have to ask yourself, especially if you are the builder, and that is, what should you do after you build your PC or after building your PC? You may be tired. You may feel like you ran a marathon. You may not even be sure if the bloody thing is going to turn on, right? You may not be sure if it's even going to work if you didn't check it, right? If you didn't follow Lab's bit of advice, and that's, check your system outside of the case, right? It's not something you have to. It's just something I highly recommend you do, especially if you're not as experienced, especially with like installing AMD CPUs, right? Where the pins are on the back of the CPU. You're just not as comfortable in the build process. Like, I highly recommend you research your parts. Once you get done with the build process, right? We're kind of fast forward here. Once you get done with the build process, and now you're like, man, I built my PC. Everything looks good, right? I'm like Bad Habit up top that says, drink a beer or celebrate with a glass of wine. You might want to drink 2 beers and have a glass of wine, or have 2 glasses of wine and a beer, right? And you might have probably found yourself having at least one of those 3 things during the build process, which if you can tolerate that, go for it, right? Maybe you need something to help you get off the edge. By all means, who am I to judge? Go for it and do it. Crack you open up a cold one, or get yourself a bottle of a nice red or Moscato or something like that, something sweet. And, take the edge off. Just relax, man. Take your time. That's something, again, you're going to hear me talk about here in a few seconds. And that's, well, take your time, fam. Take your time. But that's during the build process. Right now, we're on what should you do after you're building your PC, other than have a cold one and a glass of wine, right? Now, contrary to the belief, outdated drivers and even Windows updates can gimp performance and overall system functionality. So this goes back to what we were talking about, having, make sure that you're able to connect your PC to the internet, right? Even after you build it. And that's even if you're unable, if the PC is going to be not in its permanent place. If it's like your router's in your kitchen, I don't know, on your counter. I'm not sure where. Tell me in the chat if you're comfortable. Tell me where your router is. Like, my router is here in this part of the lab where I do all the editing and producing the videos. Like, so the router is literally like right there, and the computer is right there. So I have an Ethernet cable to right there, and even when I am testing games, I will bring it up to this level here, just to, if I'm playing a multiplayer game, to prevent any lag, and especially if the motherboard doesn't have onboard wireless support and I don't have a network card available to my disposal. My kids use them, right? Like, my kids use them, and they're fine. Like, they get the job done. But yeah, you want to make sure that you're updating your Radeon drivers, right? Google is your friend beyond, looking for how-tos. Google is your friend, right? You need AMD Radeon graphic drivers. Literally type AMD Radeon graphics drivers, so you get the Radeon suite to then update your graphics drivers. Same thing applies on the NVIDIA end with their GeForce Experience, right? Where you can download the GeForce Experience. You don't necessarily need GeForce Experience. I personally have no grievances with it. Its overlay could be helpful for capturing gameplay, Maybe if you also want to use it as an encoder, use it as a streaming device and to take screenshots, like it can be helpful. And also if you have it automatically set up to update your graphics drivers, or it may display a helpful notification that you know new graphics drivers are available. But you almost certainly, depending on when you got your graphics card, or even if you got it used, you may even want to reinstall the graphic drivers, right? Using a program called DDU. That's something once we get into more advanced live streams, that's something I'm going to share with you guys and gals on how to do that. But you want to make sure your graphic drivers are updated indefinitely. You also want to make sure Windows has all the necessary updates applicable to it, any necessary chipset drivers applicable to it as well, because especially on the AMD Ryzen side, these things will limit your performance. Now, by how much? Up to 5%, maybe 5 to 6%. That could add up if we're talking, a couple frames here and there, right? Or maybe you're getting some really bad drops and you're thinking, oh, it's lag. Nope. It could be just, it could be RAM instability issues. It could be GPU driver instability issues. It could be Windows not communicating with the chipset properly, right? And if you don't get all the Windows updates, here's a pro tip, fam. Listen, you can go to Microsoft's website itself and download the Windows launcher, the Windows updater. You don't have to sit and keep clicking refresh and waiting for the update to pop up. You can go directly to Microsoft's website and download the updater and then update to the latest version of Windows, right? When I'm testing the games, I almost certainly 100% try to make sure that Windows is updated. The graphics cards, the drivers are updated. If it's a new graphics card, I'll reinstall the graphics drivers just to make sure there aren't any hidden instability issues lurking behind the scenes, and I'm getting the maximum performance output of the graphics card, because that's important. When we're talking about gaming, what we talked about in last week's live stream, what is a video game? A video game is a digital interactive flipbook. So frame rates are important, right? Because your image, right, let's say it's 60 hertz. So you have a 60 hertz monitor. It's going to process 60 images a second, right? 60 images per second, 60 frames per second, right? So it's important your graphics card is working as fast and hard as it can, so that way your output as many frames as possible, right? If screen tearing is not an issue, right? If screen tearing is not an issue, then that can be a good thing. If screen tearing is an issue, then resort to an adaptive sync technology in the form of either G-Sync or FreeSync. Remember, we stay away from V-Sync when all and ever possible. Stay away from V-Sync. The input lag is not worth the trade-off of having to deal with deal with screen tearing. And if you want to know how that conversation went, again, watch the conversation. You can find that live stream down in the description box below. But don't leave now. Don't leave yet. We got a lot to progress over into as we segue into the third content block. Teresa Garrett says, hello, guys. Teresa, apologize if I pronounce your last name wrong. But hello, Teresa. Welcome to our weekly live show. I believe we haven't had the opportunity to meet. So we go live about once every week, every Saturday, between 3 and 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're still working on the set time, one that works wholeheartedly for the community. But we go once a week, and we also do pop-up live streams every once and again. You missed my singing section, and give the stream a like if you haven't yet, and also subscribe if you haven't yet, which I welcome you to definitely subscribe, because we go live all the time. It's just great time, good vibes. Again, you missed my singing section where I sung, and I said if we get to 30 likes, I'll even sing Johnny Cash's Hurt, right? Because we talked about music earlier in the live stream. And this is also a live Q&A, Teresa. So if you have any questions about the process, about building a PC, or more specifically the topic on hand, and that's some of the most common mistakes made when building a PC and how to avoid them, do feel free to ask at any time during this live stream, and I will get to your questions in real time. You can also ask questions about myself. If it's unrelated to the topic, I will do my best to share. But we have a lot of helpful individuals here in this community that can help answer any questions you may have, or even help get you on the path towards building your PC, because that's one of the things we take pride in here in this community, and that's we want to convert as many gamers over to the PC platform as much as possible, because we have a saying around here in this community. We say consoles have a purpose, but PCs have character, right? 5 consoles can do the same thing, but 5 PCs will likely be able to do those 5 different things in a very different way. Like, they'll have their strengths and they have their weaknesses, but with the console, you just have the console is what it is. So yeah, if you have any questions along the way, do feel free to ask. And again, welcome to our weekly live Q&A. Any and everything we talk about, you can find down in the description box below. One of the mistakes we made where we said that that's so common is or frequent, that's a lack of research. Okay, in terms of building a PC, it's hyper important, super important that you research your core components. Now, in my opinion, I said, what are your core components? That's at least three: motherboard, CPU, graphics card. If you're not going with the graphics card, then your CPU can double as a two-part. It's two core components that are important. Why? Because now your CPU is going to have onboard graphics, so it's going to be responsible for processing, processing simulation and what have you, or like lighting and things of that nature, AI. And then it's also going to require on its onboard graphics to then render pixels. So that CPU now becomes two components in one. That is important. With the third one being your motherboard, a core component. Research your core components before you build. Also, that goes in hand with your case. But once you identify the motherboard you want to use, you're kind of moving on. You're able to, I say, all right, now I know what kind of CPU, or I'm sorry, yeah, I know what kind of case I want to go with. Once you have those two factors identified, you then are able to, set yourself up to then search for a power supply unit, right? Because you want to make sure your power supply unit is going to have the necessary pins to power your graphics card, right? Graphics cards either require a 4-pin, or some don't even require any power pins at all, right? Like say the 10, I believe it's the MSI GTX 1050 Ti, which can run off the power from the PCIe lane, right? So you don't even need a power supply unit, or it doesn't even require. You will need a power supply unit, but you don't need power supply pin connectors. But on top of that, you either have 4-pin, 6-pin, or 8-pin or more, right? So depending on your graphics card you pick out, you're then ready to pick out your power supply unit, because now you've already taken into consideration your expected maximum wattage. And if you're here right now, if you're here on the replay and you're saying, man, well, Lab, you're speaking my language, I'm uncomfortable, I'm unsure what power supply I should get, how many wattages I should get, what's a fully modular power supply, what's a semi-modular power supply, what's a non-modular power supply, what's an 80 plus, gold plus, silver, titanium rating, what are all of those things? What do they mean? Don't worry, fam, I had you covered. We did that live stream 2 shows ago, right? And this is one of the reasons why we leave them up. This is one of the reasons why I try to make them super heavy topical, so that they maintain some level of replay significance, right? Because once you jump back in and just throw some headphones on, put it in the background, just listen to the conversation. A lot of helpful information, right? We talked all about power supply units on that live show, right? That was the only thing we talked about, was power supply units. So if you want to take that conversation to the next level and you're ready to make sure you get a power supply unit that's going to, support your components, that's going to enable you to use custom cables or what have you, you're going to want to go back and watch that conversation. Give it a watch. A lot of value packed in there, right? But again, we're on this topic, and that's what should you do after building your PC. So we talked about making sure your graphics drivers are all updated. We talked about making sure Windows is all updated. Again, you can go directly to AMD's website, to their Radeon section, and download the Radeon program to keep your graphics drivers updated. You could also do some pretty nifty things too, like take screenshots, record gameplay, optimize game settings. There's a lot of different things you can do in the Radeon program, and the same thing can be said for the NVIDIA GeForce experience as well. Both sites allow you to keep your graphics card drivers up to date. But if you plug your system up, if it's already connected to the internet at the moment you're installing Windows, a lot of times Windows will go ahead and install all of those driver updates for you. But it is good to still go back though and check to make sure you are running the latest graphics driver. Also, Windows will also update Windows for you if your Windows will update Windows. Of course, Windows will update Windows, but Windows will also start to download any necessary updates that are required if your system's already connected to the internet at the point of installing, doing a fresh Windows install. Very important, I stress that. Bad Habit says, yep, I learned about PSU and upgraded from 500 to 850. My system runs better. Nice. And by better, that could probably mean, it's more efficient, right? I'd imagine going from a 500 watt power supply unit to an 850 watt power supply unit could be more efficient. As a quick refresher, how can that be? Well, let's say, that 500 watt power supply unit has a 50% rated has a 50% efficiency rating. So it's going to actually draw 1,000 watts from the wall just to reach that 500-watt output, right? As opposed to a 850 watt, say 80 plus bronze rated with a 80 plus efficiency rated would maybe draw about 1,000 or 1050 watts in the wall to get that max 850 watt power draw. So it's good to have an efficient power supply unit. And we talked all about the significance of your power supply unit in general, how it's one of the unsung heroes of a PC build. Give that replay a watch. Highly, highly valuable, especially if you're ready to start buying, which kudos to you if you're ready to start buying and what's arguably one of the, dare I say it, worst times to build a PC. But that's why the best time to build a PC was 2 days ago, right? Never wait. Just build what you can now, right? Like Han Shlomo mentioned, he built the PC with the 5500 XT. You may have to shop around. Maybe you got to get your feet wet in the used market, right? But very possible, though. Very possible. But good stuff. Glad you were able to upgrade Bad Habit, and glad, the upgrade was one that was able to provide more performance. Aesthetic upgrades are okay, right? Like RGB and, LED strips, cable mods, or what have you. Those things are fine, but they do very little in terms of adding value to performance or adding efficiency to your system. A power supply upgrade, video card upgrade, or even a CPU upgrade, even a cooler upgrade, even upgrading your cooler can all help boost performance, and the upgrade cost can be minimal, right? But yeah. So what should you do after building your PC? Well, yeah, make sure your graphics drivers are updated. I can't stress this enough, but you'd be surprised how I've gotten emails, text messages, or phone calls and say, hey, I keep getting stutters, or my game is like choppy, or it's like stuttering. I'm like, okay, did you try reinstalling the graphics drivers? Well, how do I do that? Okay. Well, it's one of the things you should do after building your PC, right? So if you're one of those people who didn't know that, now you know. You heard it here. You heard it right from your host, Terrence, right here with Inside the Lab. Update your graphics card drivers, please. Update Windows. Make sure Windows is fully updated. You can do this, in succession of downloading your games, but I would highly recommend you do all of that before you go wanting to play games. Make sure your Windows is updated. Make sure your graphics cards are updated, whether that's AMD or NVIDIA. You can use the Crimson Radeon suite, or you can use the NVIDIA GeForce Experience suite. Right? Both are free to download. Don't really take up a lot of resources. And they have other functions or other functionalities that could, justify their means on your storage device, on your hard drive, or I hope your SSD. We talked about that, right? We talked about keeping your drives installed on an SSD. Super important, super important. But yeah, download Windows, update your drivers, do all the good things. Now, you can also take it to the next level and optimize Windows. Now, how do you optimize Windows? Clear cut off the bat, one of the first things I recommend is disable some of the Xbox Live features, especially the Microsoft's game mode and the in the Xbox game bar. If you don't plan on using those things, disable them. Don't let them run in the background, right? It's just taking up processing resources that could be going to your game, or that could be going to your stream if you're streaming. Disable those, go into Windows. All you have to do is go into your settings, type Xbox Live, features, and it'll pop right up. And just disable those, right? Especially disable game mode. And then you can take it to another level, right? We got 3 levels of this, so bear with me, fam. But you can take it to another level. And now let's say you want to monitor your system. So you say, all right, I built it, but I want to make sure, my cooler is cooling. I want to make sure I'm getting adequate airflow. I want to see what my CPU is boosting up to. I just want to make sure I'm not getting any crashes. If you're into, number crunching and configurations, there are a lot of free programs, fam, that can be beneficial to you, and that can help you with this, with that part of SANS or post-build, after the post-build process, if you will, right? What are those? CPU or CPU ID hardware monitors, probably one of the most well-renowned, one of the most commonly used programs that are used for benchmarkers, overclockers, much larger YouTubers, tech YouTubers other than myself. I use it faithfully in almost every build that Lab touches. CPU IPD hardware info monitor is my go-to. Now, you can download CPU ID hardware monitor totally free. You don't need to set anything up. Download it, install it at your file location, load it all up, and you'll be good to go. It's going to present you with things like, how much voltage your CPU is pulling, the clock speed, how much power it's consuming. Although I would take it with a grain of salt, it may not be accurate. It's better to measure that from the wall, like what I use. I use the Coolman. But also it's going to show you what your GPU is boosting up to, all of those things. And CPU ID hardware monitor is free. Now you can use MSI Afterburner if you were on the pop-up live stream, or if you saw some of my previous benchmark videos we used to do on the channel. You see the numbers in it'd be this side of yours, or for you, the left side of the screen. If you're facing it, you see the numbers. You see a set of numbers like how much frame rate you're putting out and what have you. And then this is NZXT Cam, which is another free program you can download to measure your temperatures, your CPU, and your GPU usage when you're running a free benchmark program like Unigen Heaven, which is what you just saw. All of these programs are free, right? But again, you can check temperatures and other vital information about your system, and you can do this while you're running Unigen Heaven benchmark. So if you just built your PC and you're like, all right, I want to make sure my graphics card is doing what it's supposed to do. It's doing its thing. I want to make sure my CPU is doing its things. There are other programs you can download too that I just haven't shown here. One of them is Cinebench R15 or R20. Again, these are all free programs. They come at zero cost to you, and it's just a way that you can ensure that you finish the build process appropriately, right? Like this part here, installing your CPU, probably one of the most nerve-wracking instances to the build, where most people say, I'm scared I might break the CPU putting it in a little socket. I'm like, it requires a little finesse, but it's not hard, fam. It's just literally, a drop in a bucket, Curry style. By Curry, I mean Steph Curry, because I like the little dude, the little dribble shoot dude. He's pretty cool. I don't watch basketball anymore though, but I did like watching Stephen Curry play and the Golden State Warriors Big Three. They were really fun. But I'm detracting. Let me jump over here to the chat, because Bad Habit says, I have a 500 gigabyte Sabrent M.2 NVMe as my boot drive. Thinking about getting a 2 terabyte drive, but I'm wondering if NVMe drives are worth it, or should I stick with just a regular SSD? So going from a regular SSD to an NVMe the difference can be negligible. Like, you may or may not feel it. It really depends on how often or what you use your system for. Now, if you have the budget, because the 2 terabyte NVMe drive, I would imagine like is a little over $200. Could be a little expensive, but if you have that budget and you can allocate it, I definitely would recommend going with it over over a standard SSD. Now, that's because the data could transfer more efficiently, because it's drawing the information and data right from the PCIe lane, as opposed to having to transfer it. Say, if your system is trying to load a game, for example, so it has to send that information from the SATA, from the motherboard, or the program, through the SATA to the SSD, from the SSD through the SATA back to the motherboard. So to eliminate that potential bottleneck, you can go with an NVMe M.2. And for those who don't know, NVMe stands for non-volatile memory extraction. So it's a faster way for your memory to access files and anything it's trying to pull from your system's registry or your system's storage device. And I would almost, if it's in the budget, Bad Habit, I guess, to answer your question, yes, I think it is worth it. Okay, to go with a 2 terabyte NVMe M.2 versus, say, a single SSD. But an SSD isn't definitely the bare minimum. I don't want to exclude hard drives. Like mechanical drives, there's nothing wrong with mechanical drives, right? Mechanical drives is what, even for my mechanical drive, is what I call long-term storage, or LTS, is what I call most hard drives I use, long-term storage. That's for games I don't play as much, my video catalog, older pictures, any information that I don't need the system to pull from as frequent will go on my mechanical hard drive, right? If it's something I'm constantly needing to load, like a program or a launcher or a game or an Adobe program, that's going to go almost indefinitely on my NVMe M.2. And here on my on Snow White, my editing rig, I only have one SSD and one mechanical drive. But then I have two NVMe M.2s. One for the OS, the 250 gigabyte is for OS, and others, some other benchmarking programs. And the other one is a 500 gigabyte NVMe M.2, and that's what I do all my editing off of. So I edit off of the NVMe M.2. All the video files go on that drive, and even when I'm working in Adobe, I'm editing off the NVMe M.2. It's just a faster workflow. And then all my games, when I am gaming on here, is because you guys saw when we did our pop-up live stream. Like this Snow White right now is essentially my workhorse. We do have Core Shredder among other configurations here in the lab, but by far Snow White is my workhorse, right? Is my CPU, or is my configuration to go with. But definitely. Tricion says, do you know anything about building dedicated server PCs? Just a few. Other than that, you can essentially do it on very low-end hardware, right? Like the most important components with your server probably is your storage and likely getting your RAID set up nice and going. Now, admittedly, unfortunately, no, I'm not as well as versed because it's just not, I haven't done enough server builds. I do though, when I do plan, when I move and I upgrade the lab though, Tricion, it could be a little too late, but in my opinion, no discussion, no topic is ever too late in this community, right? Server PCs, like I hopefully plan on moving in the next 6 months or something like that. Server PCs won't be outdated anytime soon. But when I do move, I do plan on building a home server for for the brand, for my company, and maybe even for my family. So I will take the community along that journey from beginning, middle to end, to try to show you how, if it's something you wanted to do, you can as well. And also if you wanted to create a virtual machine. But yeah, thank you for asking that, Tricion. I do need to do more content based around that. Bad Habit says, hurry up, President Biden. Send me my STEMI check. I need to get NVMe drive. Hey, that is the purpose. That is the idea behind, President Biden's economic plan, is to literally, put money into the economy. So if that's buying an NVMe drive, it could maybe provide support. It's supporting, maybe an Amazon worker or somebody at Newegg or what have you. It's the little things, but I'm with you. I mean, hopefully there's a lot of people out there who could, really benefit from that help. So hopefully they get a move on and get fast, and they take into consideration that the constituents, the American people, are, what matters the most. And they also need to realize that the outside world definitely is keeping their eyes on this country to see how we react and how we respond and how we take care of one another. They're going to be less likely to want to come here and take care of this country. But, I mean, come on. They're looking back and they want to make sure that that the people of this country are being taken care of. Hopefully the politicians with the power to be get that squared away, and they're able to get that help into the, thousands of millions of people's hands. A lot of families out there who could really benefit from that relief. Ron says, haha, for real, is that bad habit? Agreeing about, yeah, like, come on, President Biden. They need to get a move on. XLR Gaming says, gonna duck out. Grab some dinner. You guys and gals take care. Yeah, Cliff, thanks for stopping by, man. Enjoy your seafood, right? You and your wife, enjoy your seafood. I believe you said you having oysters and crawfish. I don't know if it's crayfish or crawfish, but I'm from the borderline south. I grew up in Delaware, but I was born in Virginia. No, I believe it's crawfish. So, but enjoy your dinner, enjoy your seafood, right? Enjoy your afternoon. This is actually our moderator. If you guys want to give a shout out to our moderator, tomorrow's her birthday. Tomorrow is our moderator, Kimberly. Kimberly, who's my wife. Tomorrow's her birthday, and it's actually this upcoming week is actually our anniversary as well. I believe we're married for 15 years. I was going to say that. 15 years. And that's our anniversary is next week. And it's her birthday tomorrow. So shout out to our moderator, and, be nice if you can give her a happy birthday in the chat. Ron Richard says, have a good one to Cliff. Yeah, Cliff is always good to see Cliff around. Cliff's amazing now. He follows us on Twitter as well. Well-versed in the PC community. Always willing to share and give helpful tips and advice. Bad Habit says, enjoy your dinner to XLR. To Cliff. Trisan says, I want to get into server builds because a lot of people I know suddenly need a Minecraft server on a separate PC. And so Trisan, I tell you what, thanks for bringing that to my attention, because where there is interest, that's where the conversation, or that's the kind of topics I want to absorb. So if in the Minecraft community if Minecraft users are looking to build dedicated servers because they want to work on their community in that direction, then that's content, the kind of content I want to create, so that we can pull new, if it's on their PC gamers, like you could consider, you know um the PC, this community, as a family, right? We are a family. We all have one thing in common. We are either gamers, and we are especially all PC gamers, right? Or we're slowly trying to convert people like Ron Richards, right? Who needs to, uh, excuse me, build a PC, right? So we can get Ron Richards over into the PC market. But we want to convert as many people over into PC gaming. So we're one big family, and we welcome builds of all shapes and sizes, because at the end of the day, what matters the most is that you want to play games. So even if you're a Minecraft, content creator, and you need a dedicated server to, to host your, to host your games or what have you, this is the community you need to be in. Because first of all, we welcome all builds from all different backgrounds, right? I see we had a few more people just join in. If you're just joining in, we're talking about some of the most common mistakes made when building a PC and how to avoid them. We talked about researching your parts, building up the courage to start and finish the build process, right? And once you're done that, what should you do with your PC after you're done the build process? If you have any questions along the way, for those of you who just joined in, do feel free to ask them at any time. We were in the middle of discussing, updating your graphics drivers, getting Windows fully updated before you go in and to install and download any games. And we also gave a shout out to our moderator, Kimberly, whose birthday it is today, right? I'll let her tell you. If you want to know how old she is, you can tell her what birthday it is. But it is her birthday tomorrow, and awesome times with that. Our moderator, Kimberly, she's great. You gotta respect the moderators. Our moderators are what help keep everything going and help keep the live chat robust. So we got a few, yeah, happy birthdays, happy birthday. Brian says happy early birthday, Kim. Happy anniversary, guys. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, top of that, our anniversary, the 22nd, Lab or Mrs. Mod, is the 22nd. And oh, okay, we said marked. Hello, Mark. It's nice to meet you. I believe this is your first time. Let me switch back here. Hello, Mark. I believe this is your first time here on the live show. We go live once a week. Welcome to our weekly live Q&A show. If you haven't yet, do remember to give this stream a like. And if you're not yet subscribed, I do welcome you to subscribe. We go live once a week, every Saturday between 3 and 6 o'clock p.m. On top of that, we do have normal vlogs, VODs that releases during the week. But Mark says hello, and again, hello to you, Mark. Hello, I have a 2700X awesome Zen Place 8-core 16-thread CPU, might I add. An RTX 2060 XC Ultra, both overclocked to the limits on a 700-watt PSU. I'm not sure what to upgrade next and how far I should jump. I'm an 8,000-hour PUBG player with 80 to 135 average FPS. Well, that's awesome. And so, Mark, first and foremost, thank you for sharing your specs with us. Awesome configuration, by the way. And so your question is, you're unsure of what should you upgrade next. So I hate to assume, but as I talk, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, but I'm going to assume that your game, that's 1080p at 80 to 135 average FPS that your RTX 2060 is putting out. And if you're unsure of what to upgrade next, so that could depend on, say, how much money you have in terms of upgrade funds. Like, how much do you have to work with? Now, depending on what that is, and this is me not knowing if you say already have these things. For starters, your monitor, you play PUBG, so a high refresh rate monitor is going to benefit you if you're not already on a high rate monitor, which I see. Okay, you say 1080p, yes, 1080p, 144 hertz. So that's an amazing monitor. So here's the thing: you're already at a decent point with your RTX 2060 in your monitor. If you're able to, what I'd recommend is possibly upgrading your CPU. Right? Which motherboard chipset do you have? Is it a B450 chipset? Because a 3800X, if you can find one for about $249 or about $319, or you can find them to $249, $319, may be a possible upgrade path for you, right? And that way you can to get more frame rate output at 1080p. So upgrading to even a slightly faster CPU could benefit you. We talked about, if we switch back here, we were on, let me go back here to give you a better idea. So we were on Micro Center earlier, marked, and again, upgrading your CPU could help you output more frames at 1080p, because even at that resolution, a fast CPU is going to be very much dependent on, achieving your monitor's refresh rate. So if you're looking for even just a slight more competitive edge, right, you can go with a either 5800X if you got it, 449. I'm sorry, but this is also assuming that you're close to a Micro Center, or even a 3800X at $349, right? That boost going from Zen Plus to a Zen 2 CPU could possibly put you over your monitor's refresh rate, right? What settings do you play on PUBG? I see you say you're on X470 Prime. So yeah, on the X4 with the X400 series chipset, if you have the right BIOS updated, you can actually even go up to a 5800X, because most X400 chipsets support 5000 series motherboards, or they already had the BIOS microcode to support the CPU. But your safest bet, you can go with a 3800X if you have that, if you have that amount. I see you said $1,000. Wow. So yeah, I mean, most likely a 5800X and an aftermarket cooler, indefinitely. I would start there. GPU, because you would likely be catering to scalpers. Even if you took your 1,000 and say, well, I want to upgrade my CPU or GPU, well, you're likely, to go from a 2060, you would either want to be at an RTX 3070 level or higher. RTX 3070 or RTX 3080, which RTX 3080 would be overkill for 1080p, and probably you would need an equally fast CPU to go with an RTX 3080. But to prevent any potential bottleneck scenarios or issues, I would hover between upgrading your CPU with an aftermarket cooler, right? Like a 240 millimeter AIO for about $149 CPU as well. Save some of that for when the GPUs do normalize, when stock does normalize, right? And you can upgrade your GPU to something maybe a little more robust from your RTX 2060. On top of that, even selling your RTX 2060 to put towards upgrading your graphics card. Because I see you say you play on all low settings with high texture, so that's what I would consider a competitive settings. So even at those settings, you're very much still, playing. You're very much still putting your CPU at a reasonable load. You're still relying on your CPU to be fast enough to output enough frames and to keep up with your GPU, right? The higher settings, the more of the program, in this case the game, will be dependent on your GPU, with your CPU still needing to process those higher resolutions and everything else it may be doing. If your AI is running or if people are running around, your CPU still needs to process those things. But with $1,000, if your target is more frame rates, right? If you're getting 80 to 135 on average, depending on where you are on the map, I suppose, and you want to, get over your monitor's refresh rate, consider upgrading your CPU. Go with an aftermarket cooler. That way you can take full advantage of PBO and let your CPU automatically boost up to its fastest possible frequency on that core, right? I'm not sure if you overclock or not, but even if you do get an AIO, you'll be setting yourself up for future overclocking should you want to do so, right? So again, on your configuration with your X470 Prime, your Ryzen 7 2700X, your 1080p 144 hertz monitor, right? Consider upgrading your CPU and the AIO. With $1,000, that's whole platform hopping, right? Or even consider if you want to flirt with Intel. I mean, $1,000, what is that? A 10900K and a Z490 motherboard? It's a 10-core, 20-thread CPU and a Z490 motherboard. That would definitely complement your system really well. And because Intel still, it has their cores come with strong IPC, you will likely be able to surpass your monitor's refresh rate, right? What kind of monitor does your monitor have? G-Sync or FreeSync? Curious. And is it an IPS monitor? I imagine it's IPS monitor. If you're a competitive gamer and you play games like PUBG, you play competitive, you are most likely playing on a monitor that can process those images fast. It can change, it has a low response time. But yeah, awesome stuff and great question, Mark. Coming out the gate swinging with the question. Love it. Great question though. Either way, Triceon says, I think a new GPU, man, the 2700X is still good. Yeah, the 2700X is still good, and you're absolutely right. I do not disagree with that. But if the GPU market was as crazy as it is now, and I'd be like, because you can't really find them, right? Like we looked at. Let me go back here really fast before we continue on. If we go back here, and I'm only using Micro Center as an example here because they're just so widely available here in the States. Newegg is, it's even worse. But as we go here, there aren't any new high-end graphics cards here in stock at all. And so you would likely be going along the direction of entertaining scalpers. Your 2700X likely isn't getting old anytime soon. It's still very much a capable CPU. Absolutely, like Triceon mentioned. Really, Mark, you really wouldn't necessarily need to upgrade. But if you had that disposable income and you say, no, you know what, Lab, the heck with you, fam. I want to upgrade. I want more frames, right? Off the bat, I would say you could upgrade your CPU and get a cooler and you would still have money left over. It'd be a little hard for you to do that with a graphics card because with a graphics card, you're going to pay probably 40 to 50% on top of what that graphics card is worth, right? If we're talking, RTX 3070s, you're likely going to pay about $850 for an RTX 3070, right? Still a very much a viable upgrade, but the 2700X may or may not be fast enough to keep up with it at those settings. Is very important, right? Because in your CPU it's gonna be like a balanced load, right? It's gonna be like a balanced load at this competitive settings. I see this all the time when I'm testing Fortnite, and I'm testing Fortnite in competitive settings, right? Like the load is balanced on the CPU and GPU. You may not even see 100% GPU utilization when you're playing at a competitive settings like all low with texture set to high. It's the same thing applies to Fortnite. If you're playing with, say, your view distance set to epic, everything else turned down with your texture set to high, your graphics card isn't working nearly as hard now as your CPU is. It's like, competitive gamers who really want to go to the next level, they will game at 720p. So a fast CPU is more important than having a fast GPU because at 720p, your CPU is definitely going to be one of the biggest factors with getting a maximum frame rate output, right? But a new GPU could definitely be it could be an upgrade path. That's up to you. If you would want to entertain the scalpers prices, just do note that it'd be really difficult to find even a Radeon 6800, which is what I would definitely recommend if they were available, right? $649 Radeon RX 6000, RX 6800 XT. Dang, fam, I almost couldn't talk. But a Radeon 6800 XT at $600 or $649, I believe it is that's a great buy, especially when you have $1,000 to work with and upgrade. But you cannot find that graphics card at that price. So you could upgrade your graphics card. But yeah, you'll be paying scalper prices, right? It's like, what could you not pay for a scalp price? Well, again, you could upgrade your CPU. You can, get an AIO, a decent cooler, right? And still have some coin left over for a future upgrade. Your RTX 2060 definitely is still a capable graphics card, right? And if we jumped over to eBay to see what RTX 2060s are going for, I'd imagine probably over $400. So even though if you did have the money to upgrade, you can still very much pass your savings down to somebody, sell your RTX 2060, put that towards upgrading, and maybe even upgrade to a high-end fast graphics card to pair with a high-end CPU like the 5800X, right? Would be a great buy, or even a Ryzen 3800X would be a great buy, a great upgrade for you, Mark. But that's a nice budget, like Triceon said. Oh, sheesh, that's a big upgrade, and yeah, that's why I said it's almost platform switching level, right? Where you can almost switch whole platforms with that $1,000 budget, right? It's very possible to do so, right? That's a nice budget. That's actually a nice budget. It's what we recommend you start out, especially here in modern times. But it's hard because, again, GPU prices are making that difficult to, again, this 1660, this Ventus MSI Ventus XS overclocked edition at $314. Is it really worth $314? I mean, I paid $305 or $320, I believe, for the GTX 1660 Ti with the best gaming PC to build under $900 in 2021. I slightly paid it over MSRP for that. So, and even for it, but a 1650, I would recommend getting the 1650 Super over the 1650 if you can help it, even at $175. I mean, the 1650 doesn't have the new NVIDIA encoder on board like the 1650 Super does, but I highly recommend you go with the 1650 Super, but it's not available. And you figure you definitely, even with $1,000 in hand, if Mark had $1,000 right now, right? And the same could be said if we went to Newegg. We would just see a bunch of red out of stock. If you had $1,000, you don't have an upgrade path right now. But if you really wanted to go on an upgrade path, you said, what can I upgrade that would help me get the most out of my system? Definitely consider jumping up to Ryzen 5000. Double check to make sure your motherboard, the Asus X470 Prime, has the micro core to support Ryzen 5000 series. But if not, the Ryzen 3800X will probably give you about a single-digit IPC uplift from the 2700X. So it could give you a double-digit frame rate boost, marked, if you go with that direction. Again, $349 for a 3800X, coupled with maybe a $100 AI, $150 240 millimeter AIO, say like the NZXT cranking, right? It's a $500 upgrade path. You still have that other $500 that you can pocket and say, you know what? When I am ready to upgrade my graphics card, or maybe NVIDIA is set to launch their Super, because we're going to get 30. And I don't want to say I regret buying my RTX 3090, but I know there's going to be a Super Series refresh with the 30 series. So maybe you'll be coming into that upgrade path, or you can maybe be on the Super Series upgrade, right? Going from an RTX 2060, say, to an RTX 3060 Super or an RTX 3070 Super. You never know. There could just be an option. You could just put that money aside, but you would still get some level of performance upgrade or some level of performance boost with going this direction, right? $500 CPU and AIO. It's an amazing upgrade. Mark says, let me get caught up on the chat really fast, because Mark says the one with the RGB that makes it go faster. I sense a little bit of sarcasm there, because yeah, we all know how much RGB helps make your system run faster. But all jokes aside, you can, if you wanted an AIO with RGB, and you do want the upgrade to be both performance enhancing and one that's purely aesthetic, then there's nothing that's perfect. You're perfectly within realm to do so, right? Before we truck along and get into what you should do after building your PC, let me go over to water cooling. I don't know why it's water cooling kits. But see, $139 for the Lian Li Galahad 360 millimeter RGB water cooling AIO, or this NZXT Crankin X63 280 millimeter RGB, right, with the cool, like the glowing effect on the water pump there, right? Or with I like the Corsair IQ H100i, right, that has RGB going around the side. Or you can even go a little bit more advanced and have your fans come with one. I mean, you're going to pay a little bit more. But if you really had $1,000 and you want to upgrade, you say, you know what, hold on, I want this to be aesthetic and performance enhancing. You'd be surprised how a robust cooling solution can help maintain those clock speeds. A CPU that's able to maintain high clock speeds will run efficiently and be able to keep up with those frame rates. You're going to experience less frame rate drops, less stuttering, and very respectable minimum of 1% lows when your components can actually stay cool at a consistent and efficient rate. But if you do want the excuse me, if you do want the one that with the RGB, argue if it'll make it go faster, but it will help with your cooling, right? But yeah, so you have options, and with that $1,000 upgrade path, let's use everybody. Let's say Triceon had $1,000. Let's say Myron had $1,000 to build a PC. You have those options, right? One of my personal favorites, though, let me see if it's here. I mean, I like the Cooler Master H150 Platinum Pro, but Micro Center doesn't have it listed, or the H115i. But if you do want RGB, if that's something that's, yes, you're fancy, I like RGB. You down with, can I get an air horn? Like, if you down with RGB, let me know, because I like RGB, right? Like, shout out to the RGB fans in the house, right? I like RGB. So, but even then, again, $1,000, $500, $349 for the CPU, $189. You're still under $1,000, fam. You can pass that savings off. Maybe you want to get custom cable mod. Maybe you want to upgrade your power supply unit to prepare yourself for that future GPU upgrade, right? Let's say your MSI, or I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not sure if it's an MSI. But let's say your RTX 2060, right, is a 6-pin. Your power supply unit only supports a 6-pin graphics card, so maybe you need to upgrade your power supply unit, right? You still have a little bit of flexibility even after upgrading your CPU, upgrading your cooling solution with an AIO. Let's say you then say, oh, you know what? I also want to maybe get 850 watt Corsair RMX power supply unit, 80 plus gold rated power supply unit. I want a really efficient system. You still have very much a lot of headroom to do so, as you're in the realm of like 100, under 100, between 80 to $100 for a decent 850 watt 80 plus bronze, at least bronze rated power supply unit, and you would still have more money left. And those things will prepare you for a future upgrade, especially if you want to go with a modular power supply unit or a fully modular power supply unit. You pick and choose your cords. But Mark says, yeah, in New York State Micro Center life. Oh, okay, cool. So you're from New York. Awesome stuff. Okay. What parts? My mom, who was here on our live show, I doubt she's here now, but my mom, who was here on the live show, she is from Queensbridge, New York. New York City, Queensbridge, New York City. And my dad is from the Boogie Down Bronx. I visited the Bronx. Not my cup of tea. Very different New York City style of living. But I'm a country boy at heart. And Mark says, interesting, all right, happy I decided to ask you. I was going to follow the GPU hype train and get a 3060. Okay? And you say your monitor is IPC with FreeSync. So yeah, I mean, going from an RTX 2060 to an RTX 3060, I would wait for independent reviews, see how much of a difference or leap in performance that could be. I'd imagine it's probably about, 10, it's probably somewhere along the lines of 10%, like at least 10% faster, 10 to 15% faster, right? But you may need to upgrade your power supply unit. Triceon says, oh yeah, I forgot about the whole GPU market situation. Not a single NVIDIA GPU in stock, high end, low end, Quattro, all sold out here. They're all sold out here too, fam. Like the Best Buy is just as worse. Best Buy it's pitiful if you go into a Best Buy here stateside. Like I know our fam Triceon is located over in the Netherlands, right? We got a global fam in the house, but the Best Buy, if you go into a Best Buy right now, it is all gloom and doom. At one point, when I bought the 1650 Super, they had a plethora. I don't know which way you want to pronounce it, but they had a lot of RX 5500 XTs in stock, 1650 Supers, and that was it. But now, it's Jack Diddley do squat, man. All you go in there, you can maybe buy dust, but that's all you're going to be able to walk out and get, fam. The GPU market situation is extremely dire. So, trying my best to give marked actionable advice is where I point them into the direction of getting your GPU or upgrading your GPU. I'm not starting at your GPU, but upgrading your CPU and updating your cooler, starting there, and even your power supply unit. That way you can just get ready to upgrade your graphics card when the time comes. And it's just a matter of, you've already upgraded your CPU, so you have a slightly faster CPU that can keep up with your newer graphics card. And that's especially important because you marked game at 1080p. Mark says, Triceon, yeah, that's what I was thinking, especially since it was seen that people are willing to pay 3060 for my 2060. I was just going to sit on my 1050 Ti until the prices went down. Yeah, I mean, that's respectable, and I tell you what, be careful selling, because there are people out there who will buy your 1050 Ti at a respectable price and still turn around and sell it at a marked up rate, right? So, like you said, it's good to maybe sit on your 1050 Ti and wait till prices go down. I know I wish I still had my 1050 Ti. I had sold it back when prior to the GPU shortage of 2019, right? I sold my 1050 Ti for like under $100. Crazy deal compared to now they're worth like they're going for $300, but I still wouldn't sell it for that rate. I still wouldn't sell it. But yeah, we got to see how the RTX 3060 is going to perform, relative to, say, an RTX 2060. Normally, when the generations leap themselves like that, like the RTX 2060 was about 10% faster than the GTX 1060, 6 gigabyte GTX 1060, which is, we talked about this past couple live streams, one of the most popular graphics cards on Steam right now for gamers who have opted into the Steam survey. So the 60 series graphics cards are coming in clutch. It's probably why, you know, your RTX 2060 especially is in such high demand. I know for one, it's definitely one of the reasons why it's rumored that Nvidia is set to relaunch those graphics cards, the 1050 Ti and RTX 2060, that kind of help combat this, you know, this the scalper issue we're having. Excuse me. And Mark says, indeed, don't want to support the scalpers. Yeah, it's best if we don't entertain their practices. You know, those, you know, for the ones who are holding on to their RTX 20 or their, you know, Ryzen 5 5600Xs and 5800Xs, I hope, you know, it's starting to come back and bite them right in the rear. And I did a video on, you know, the invasion of scalpers and the war on the scalpers. It still does pretty well even now, although we published it last year. You can get that video a watch in our most recent playlist. It was a fun vlog to do. I love our vlogs. Our vlogs kind of double as fillers, but still valuable and still fun and entertaining either way. But definitely give that a like, and a watch. Mark says, I'm going to listen to you. Go for a CPU. Yeah, definitely. Consider definitely upgrading to the 3800X. Going from the 2700X. You're going to see slightly near, if the chipset drivers have matured enough, maybe even double-digit performance boost in IPC going from an RTX 2060, or I'm sorry, Ryzen 7 2700X to a Ryzen 7 3800X. And Mark says CPU would also help me with creative intensive projects like After Effects and Cinema 4D. Oh, yeah, Mark, I'm sorry. I'm just now getting caught up in the chat and there's a little bit of delay. But now that you've shared that bit of context with us, absolutely. Like, you can encode on your graphics card, right? You can encode on your graphics card. But you still have the same amount of cores, but the core density, the core strengths going from Zen 2 to going from Zen Plus to Zen 2 could definitely help you out in those CPU intensive workflows. Yeah, definitely. If you use After Effects and Cinema 4D, upgrading your CPU is definitely going to help boost or give you the quickest performance upgrade or enhance your content creation workflow. That's awesome stuff, Mark. And Mark says, I heard that the 1660 is equal to a 2060. No, the 2060 is still very much slightly faster than the 1660, right? I believe the 16 series graphics cards were NVIDIA's pretty much RTX 2050 and 2050 Ti's. But NVIDIA didn't want to do it, so they launched the 16 series instead. But the RTX 2060 still is slightly faster. I mean, a 1660 Super may be knocking on the door, maybe like right there in terms of pure rasterization, right? That's just the graphics card being able to render the game. It might be neck and neck, but you know, I like features, and the RTX 2060 has two features, especially with those Turing RT cores and the DLSS cores, the tensor cores for DLSS to help you give a performance boost. Regardless of how you feel about DLSS, having the option to enable it and get that performance boost is definitely welcome and helpful in my honest opinion. So it's almost worth going with the 2060 for that alone. And if you want to, you know, get your hands in or dabble along in ray tracing, which Mark, obviously PUBG doesn't support ray tracing, but again, it's good to have, nor does PUBG support DLSS, which is interesting. I'm wondering if it will get DLSS support. I mean, Fortnite did. Ron Richards says, gotta hop off, brother. Good night, everyone. Ron, thanks for hopping out. I think you might have already dipped off, but thanks for stopping by, Ron. I do appreciate you hanging out, brother. And Bad Habit says RGB is the shiznit. I totally agree. I mean, I love RGB. I like static colors here. Like, I would move the camera, but it would just focus and get all wonky. But Snow White right now is static colors, static RGB with just like a white kind of aesthetic with it. But you know, I love my core shredder build because it has the rainbow puke, and I'm alright with the rainbow puke. I will wholeheartedly admit and recognize it's not for everybody, but I am okay with the rainbow puke. But yeah, RGB is really dope, man. I was really hyped when I got into modern computers. I'm like, oh wow, man, computers can have lights in them now, and you can change the lights in them. I felt like a complete noob. Bad Habit says, God said, let there be light, then he created RGB. That's a good one, Bad Habit. Bad Habit, can we get that on some labware? Can we get that on some lab swag? That's funny, fam. God said, let there be light, then he created RGB. Trashy House says, LMAO. That is funny. Hilarious stuff. We got to get that on a shirt. That should be on a shirt. God said, let there be light, then he created RGB, right? And no offense to any, you know, if you're heavy in your faith, right? All due respect. But that's funny. Teresa says, excuse me, may I ask about a few problems with my video card? But Teresa, if you're still here, I do hopefully I can help you answer your questions. Do tell us what are you experiencing with your video card? Like, is it artifacting? Is it displaying like little squares on it? Is it stuttering? Is it micro stuttering? What's your problem? What is your graphics card doing? Is it coil whining? Is it making a noise? I'm just trying to think of some common issues, or is it randomly crashing to the desktop or randomly creating black screens? Yeah, let us know. And let us know what graphics card you're using and your power supply unit. Those could be two important bits of context to know to help me troubleshoot and help you give you a little bit of advice. But Mark says, I'm in shock. Talking to my friends, 1050 Ti sell for $300. Yeah, but actually, is it worth $300? Not necessarily. But it'll go for it simply because demand is so high right now and supply is so low. Inflated prices will always win in that scenario, unfortunately. When supply is low but demand is super high, high as it's ever been right now, especially with a lot of people home and looking for ways to entertain themselves while they're at home. And one of those could be upgrading their computer, like you, Mark. You say I got 1,000 to drop, right? Or Bad Habits said they're waiting for their stimmy to upgrade their computer. So if you're home and you have that disposable income coming your way, right? You may want to upgrade your graphics card. So right now, that's one of the reasons why they're just in such high demand, and the supply chain has just been absolutely wrecked with global lockdowns, and companies have to shut down. Just really sucks. Really sucks. Really does. Triceon says, "I'm gonna go, man. It's 3 a.m. for me." See you, Triceon. Thanks for hanging out, fam. It's always good to have you here. It's always good to have you here. And Bad Habit says, "Of course, it's yours." Absolutely. Oh, talk about put it on a shirt. Yeah, we got to put that on a shirt. God said, "Let there be light." Then He created RGB. Definitely. And Teresa says, "Thank you. I'm still here." Yeah. So Teresa, tell us what kind of graphics card you're using, what kind of power supply you're using, and what issues are you having with your graphics card, and maybe we can try to help you as best as possible. And I see we're at 25 likes. So if you're just joining us, do remember to hit the stream, give the stream a like, and subscribe if you're new here to the channel. As we progress into the final block here of our live show, switch it back here because we're talking about what should you do after you finish building your PC, right? Teresa says, I had to press shutdown button in the case to shut it down. Okay, you had to do a hard reset. So we would call in the PC world a hard reset. It's where you had to shut it down just to get it to come back on. Again, what graphics card are you using? And when you have to do that, what are you doing? Are you gaming? Is it immediately when you just turn your system on and your system is idle at the desktop or on the home screen? What are you doing that causes it to just that you have to hard reset your system, which I'm going to say it likely locks up your system and you're unable to go down, hit the Windows button, Control Alt Delete, bring up Task Manager, any of those things. But yeah, do let us know. So we talked about, preparing by researching for your parts. We talked about building up enough courage to start the build process. Once you finish the build process, what should you do after you're done? Right? We talked about updating your graphics card drivers, right? Making sure Windows is fully updated. And this is to make sure you won't run into any issues. Is this a mistake? It still very much can be considered a mistake. Why? Because new builders or inexperienced builders just may be ready to jump in and just download some games. Maybe they're not aware that you're supposed to download the drivers before rendering games, or maybe make sure Windows is fully updated. And by fully updated, again, Google is your friend beyond learning how to tie a tie or fix or replace the water pump in your car, right? I'm speaking from semi-related experiences, but I digress. Simply put, type in Google, tell Google what you need. If you need to know what's the latest version of Windows is, Google search that exactly. Okay? You can go to Microsoft.com, you can get their Windows Updater launcher, and it'll automatically update you to the latest version of Windows. You don't have to wait for Windows to send your system the upgrade or the update, right? You just want to make sure you're fully updated in Windows before downloading your games. Very important, right? So we talked about updating your graphics drivers, updating Windows. And Bad Habit says, talking about shutdown, I get where I use the shutdown option and the Windows button when my computer restarts. instead. Huh. Well, that's weird. I wonder if there's maybe something going on with your memory, right? I'm not sure if you're using an XMP, but normally memory will cause your system to be a little wonky like that. But that's a weird issue, bad habit. Yeah. You have to like you go to shut down your PC, but it restarts instead. I would also make sure your Windows is updated too. Bad habit. Again, this may seem like blanket advice, but sometimes it's the little things that make the biggest difference, especially with computers. It could be the tiniest of issues where you might not even thought that can resolve the issue for you, but you still very much would be surprised. But if that's a nuisance, I would look into that. I would research that a little bit. But yeah. And so on the screen a minute ago, you saw NZXT Cam. So NZXT Cam is a free program you can use to make sure your system is running cool, to check your temperatures. Um, I would recommend using MSI Afterburner, but it takes a little bit more setting up, which I do plan to do a dedicated video to show you how to set up MSI Afterburner if you're interested in benchmarking your own hardware. But CPUID hardware monitor doesn't require any setup. You just download it, install it, load it up, download, install Unigine Heaven, run it at the 1080p preset, mess around with your settings, see what your graphics card can maybe output in terms of FPS. Also, make sure your temperatures, everything looks good, utilization looks good. These are all free programs you can download and uninstall as soon as you're done with them. But they're free, and free is my favorite price. It's one thing I say. Free is my favorite price. And when you have free programs like that, definitely take advantage of them. Make sure your system is running the way it's supposed to. Hardware, CPU ID hardware monitor will also come in handy should you be ready to overclock. If you run an overclock, that's a tricky subject, man. I love overclocking. I'm going to do more overclocking content here on the channel, fam. Make no mistake about that. But yeah, Unigine Heaven. Unigine actually has a few benchmarks, but the Unigine Heaven, it is a little seasoned, a little outdated, but very much still cut and dry, good application to test. And again, it's free. You don't even have to purchase any games just to make sure your system is running fine. And even still, you can download Steam, and there's still a couple of free demos you can also download that have a couple benchmarks that you can also just check to make sure your system is just running the way it's supposed to. Okay. And now I talked about in the beginning, I said there's one key piece of advice that I was going to save for the very end, right? And we're not at the end, but we're very close. But overall, to get to this point here, like what you see me on the screen, where I'm testing out this where I say I recommend you test the hardware out on the on a box or on a table or something have you. Before you install it into the case, check to make sure the memory is not faulty. It could happen, components, PC parts are proprietary. They're either going to work or they're not going to work. There's no in between. Parts can come defective from the factory. It is a possibility. It's not likely, but very much still a probability. And Murphy's Law, right? Murphy's Law says if something can go wrong, it will. But checking your hardware at this step, right? Getting to this point, one of the most important things you don't want to do is rush, force, or hurry the process. I can't stress that enough. It may not be mentioned as much, but I guarantee you the just desire and eagerness to build, get your system up and running, get your system up and going, could maybe cause you to want to rush and say, oh, I just force it's supposed to go in there. It looks like it's supposed to go in there. Why is it going there? A good rule of thumb is when you're building PCs, if you got to force it, it don't fit, fam. Don't rush. Take your time, okay? Take your time. There's no reason to rush building your PC. Unless you're doing it for a client, which if you're doing it as a business, then I'm preaching to the choir. You should know this already, right? But don't rush. Take your time, okay? Use your screwdriver. If you're unsure if something's supposed to be unscrewed, just give it a little, wiggle test, right? Give it a small nudge test. Don't force. That's in and out, right? In and out, especially when installing your CPU. Don't force, especially when installing your GPU on your PCIe lane. Don't force. Plugging in your power pin connectors to the EPS, most of the time it's a 4-pin, to the 4-pin EPS cable, to your 6-pin power pin connector, or the 24 ATX pin adapter to connect to the motherboard, to power the motherboard. Don't force it, right? Inside of those pins, there's there's like circles and rectangles, okay? And if you're trying to force them in, you could damage those internally, and it could prevent system instability, and it could even prevent your system from booting up and powering on. Same thing with installing your RAM. You want to make sure the teeth are aligned properly. Line it up before you if you're unsure, don't just take the RAM out. And I wish it would cut to that, this video would cut to that segment of install a RAM. Maybe it will here soon. But you want to make sure the teeth is lined up, right, with the little slot. Force your RAM and you're double screwed, fam. You might that rhyme. Force your RAM and you're double screwed, fam. Force your RAM and you're double screwed, fam. Force your RAM and Okay. I got away with singing, but y'all not gonna forgive me with that horrible rapping, right? But you want to make sure your RAM is lined up with those teeth. Do not force it. Go nice and gently. Press down, especially your RAM, nice and firmly. Wait to hear that click, click. Give it a little tug. Normally, when I'm installing RAM, I also like to pull up a little bit just to make sure it's secure, right? Just to make sure it's mounted. Wow, my arm coming in just now, it kind of shook me a little bit. It looked like I was like reaching into that screen to turn the monitor on. That's pretty cool. But yeah, don't force. Especially don't hurry the process. Doing those three things, like rush, force, or hurry, you're almost definitely set to make any of these mistakes mentioned during this live show. Which I see, no PP, interesting name. Welcome to the live stream, no. I believe this is the first. I would have remembered your name, no. But welcome to the live stream. I believe this is the first time we've had the opportunity to fellowship and talk. Welcome to the weekly live Q&A show, where we're discussing some of the most common mistakes made when building a PC, and most importantly, how to avoid them. No says, are anti-static wristbands necessary with building? Ding, 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 ding. I was waiting for this question to come. I purposely left it out because I was waiting for this question to come. Yes and no, right? You don't need a anti-static wristband. Now, let me repeat that. You don't need it. As you can see, you'll never see me building with an anti-static wristband. I also do try to take precautions to eliminate anti-static interference or, damage. Most modern components, most modern motherboards, most modern PCBs in general come with some level of anti-static or anti-shock treatment or protection. The issue is still very much there. It's not present on older hardware, so you still could possibly run into that issue. But there are things you can do to eliminate your need for, an anti-static wristband. For starters, if you can, build on a wooden surface, right? And build on any floor surface that's not carpet. Before you start handling sensitive components like your motherboard and your graphics card, rub your hands, or both your hands, on some wood, right? Or like on a piece of plumbing, like underneath your sink, right? And that's to ground yourself. You want to ground yourself. Now, the anti-static wristband helps you all the time, as you're pretty much grounded because you're running the other metal clip to like another metal material, right? Like the case, for example. Like you can hook up your anti-static wristband to the case. Now, maybe you're prone to static electricity more than I am, and that's an issue that you are concerned about. You are definitely certain to add that extra level of protection. There's nothing wrong with that. I would never, shy against one wanting to protect themselves even more. But I will say, as you get comfortable with the process, you will find yourself needing it less and less. I find that they get in the way, especially once they're like, the teeth are latched onto the case and like you're moving it, like smack, pow, smacking the eye or something, or your flexibility is limited. And so you may not even find yourself needing an anti-static wristband. But do you need one? You don't necessarily need one, but it is good to have if you want that extra level of protection. But great question, no. I do appreciate you asking. I was ready for it to pop up. Teresa says my computer spec is a Ryzen 5 2600. All right, also we got another Zen Plus 6-core 12-thread CPU in the house. MSI B350 PCI mate in my PSU is a Anderson M5 Plus 650 watt. Okay. And your graphics card. What is your graphics card? And again, what what does it do when, it locks up on you like that, right? Yeah. We need that bit of details to kind of help um, with or troubleshoot your issue. It is good to share these specs with us, though, knowing what your, 650 watt power supply, Ryzen 5 2600, and I'm not sure if you already dropped your GPU. We might have missed it, so if you can, drop it. Let us know what your GPU you're using, and at what point does your system lock up, right? Like, what point does your system lock up, and where you have to hard reset your system? Yeah. And for those of you who are just joining us, we were nearing wrapping up with some of the final mistakes you can make with one of the mistakes you can make with the builder process, and that's not updating your graphics drivers and making sure Windows is updated. Teresa says my video card is a R9 290 Ice X X2 4 GB. Okay. So have you tried updating your Radeon Crimson drivers first and foremost? Make sure your graphics drivers is updated, and if you're able to monitor your graphics card, I'm interested to know what your GPU temps were. I mean, R9 290 is not old, but I know I swapped the thermal paste out on an R9 390, and it was long overdue. Like, yeah, maybe you could be overheating or experience some throttling, but to have your system completely lock up, there may be some other instability issues going there. It could be related to your power supply unit. Again, does that happen when you're just idle on a desktop, or is that the moment you go to, say, fire up some frames, right? But as you can see here in our example, which could be on a little delay, but installing your CPU, don't rush, don't force, take your time, don't rush or hurry the process. Very important that you don't do that, right? And just like with installing your RAM, how I said, you can see you have, like, this has 4 RAM slots, so it supports quad channel memory. And I may go a little fast here, but pulling the brackets back, your RAM has a little slot. Sometimes it's in the center. You want to make sure that slot lines up with the rivet and the actual DRAM. You don't want to force it right there. There's not a lot of lip between between the DRAM PCB, right, and the actual heatsink. Walter G, what's happening, fam? I didn't know you was still lurking, still around. It's good to see you, Walter G. Walter G was there during our pop-up live stream. It's good to see you, fam. Thanks for stopping by into our weekly live Q&A. As Walter asks Teresa, what type of memory are they using? Yeah, curious as to what your memory is, but I believe, Walter, I'm not sure what part of the conversation you walked in. Teresa's experiencing issues with their video card. So I was trying to see if it's when they're getting ready to load up a frame, maybe start up a game, or they just boot it up and maybe they double click to go launch the game and the system just locks up, right? The system just locks up. So it's 16 gigabytes of 3000 megahertz memory. Okay. Do you have an XMP? Do you have an XMP enabled? It shouldn't cause your system to hard lock like that, right? Like, faulty memory shouldn't necessarily cause your system to hard lock like that. Maybe an application to freeze or crash every once and again. But do you have an XMP memory, XMP profile enabled on there, Teresa? Do let us know in the chat. But yeah, Walter G says, what's up, bro? It's good to see you, Walter G. We were talking about some of the mistakes made when building a PC, and most importantly, how to avoid them. But I just want to jump over into, as we get ready to wrap up here, but Teresa still shares that information so we can try to maybe get to the bottom of why your system is doing that, and maybe give you some actionable steps you can take to fix it. And even if you're still running into those issues, this is one of the reasons why I recommend you, if you're here on the replay, if you're here now, I recommend you follow me over on Instagram at Inside the Lab YT, or over on Twitter at Inside the Lab YT. Both of the names are the same thing, Inside the Lab YT. Follow me over there. If you're still running into this issue, I can try to help you there. And so he says, yes, I do. I run XMP profile too with 3000 megahertz. Try 2933 megahertz. Try 2933 megahertz. Ryzen could get pretty weird with trying to run 3000 megahertz rated memory. So if you can, try to change your profile to either 2933 megahertz, check for instability, and if you can, dial it back either further if it's not stable at 2933 megahertz to 2666 megahertz, because you're on the B300 chipset. So that's one of the older Ryzen chipsets, and especially the B350 motherboards definitely didn't play well originally with higher rated RAM. I'm not sure if you updated your BIOS microcode. Some of the microcode updates did help support XMP XMP profiles, but if you're not, you know, if your microcode isn't fully updated, try to dial back your XMP profile. You won't, trust me, you're not losing anything. You probably even could be experiencing diminishing returns, right? If you look at is overclocking, where if you haven't seen that video where I showed you how to overclock, the benefits of overclocking or setting your XMP profile, watch that video, because you'll see I run the game comparisons at 2133, 2666 megahertz, and 2933 megahertz, right? And that was on a Ryzen 5 1600X, so a slightly, Zen 1 generation based 6-core 12-thread CPU, and that was on a Gigabyte Aorus X470 motherboard, Gaming 7 motherboard. And I was able to dial in 2933 megahertz, but believe it or not, that CPU, even though it's a first generation CPU, still unable to post at anything past 3000 megahertz, even if the RAM is rated higher than that. So you could possibly be running into a similar issue, Teresa. So what I recommend is dialing your XMP profile back. If you're comfortable with going into your BIOS, again, for those of you who don't know, friends and family, you access your BIOS by rapidly hitting the delete key or the F1 key or the F2 key, one of those three keys. The moment before your motherboard's logo splashes on screen. So if you power down your system because you ran into that, it locked up and froze like that, and you turn it back on, as soon as you see that black screen, just immediately hit delete, go in there and just choose the 2666 megahertz profile or the 2933 megahertz profile. Okay. You'd be surprised that, memory is so volatile, right? Memory could be one of those things that really could cause your system to perform erratically, right? It may not even be an issue with your graphics card, right? As it stands, I would start there. I would start with trying to dial back your XMP profile and see if you're still running into those issues. Mark says, me too, dude. 3666 megahertz overclocked memory. Yeah, that's not even XMP profile at that point. I'm going to imagine that's a manual overclock at 3666 megahertz. That's awesome speed. That's blazing fast at that point. Ooh. And House Lomo says, checking out for now. Great stream, fam, and happy birthday to Kimberly. Again, yeah, our moderator. If you're just joining us, it is our moderator's birthday tomorrow, Kimberly. So do give her a happy birthday in the chat, as our moderator is definitely important to helping make sure the live show goes on, as planned. I see we had a few people join in, and again, we're talking about some of the most common mistakes, or some of the most common mistakes made when building a PC, and how to avoid them. Talked about preparing and researching your parts before you buy them. It's something we preach a lot here in this community, is to do your research. Even if you're not building your PC, even if you're paying a system integrator, paying somebody to do it for you, research the parts before you click checkout. Even if you're going to send those parts to the system integrator to build for you, research the parts, especially your core components. That's your motherboard, your CPU, and your GPU, right? Look at your QVL. Your QVL is your quality vendor list, right? That's a list of memory that's been tested true and true by the manufacturers, by the vendor, right? And it's a list of memory that's supported by the motherboard that's going to enable that you get a successful XMP or the maximum possible rated speed. It's very important you check for those things. That's why I say your motherboard, CPU are 2 out of the 3 core components you want to make sure you do research on. Your case kind of is what it is, right? You want to make sure it's compatible with your motherboard, right? It will support your graphics card, right? It has any other features you may look for to correct the necessary headers. Maybe you want tempered glass, maybe you don't want tempered glass, right? Maybe you want a mesh cooling, maybe you don't want a mesh cooling, right? But your core components, your graphics card, your CPU, and your GPU, those 3 things indefinitely are important and core parts you should research before you buy. Now, once you build up the courage to start, you have the courage to finish, fam. Trust me. Okay, in the build process, when you're installing your motherboard, once your CPU and your cooler and everything is mounted onto there, before you install your motherboard, make sure you put that back plate on, All right, make sure you put that back plate on. Your back plate is very important. Make sure you put the back plate on. Can't stress that enough. Make sure you're taking your time. Make sure you're not forcing the process. Make sure you're not rushing the process. Okay? A mistake a mistake is success in progress, right? It's okay to make mistakes. A mistake is a success in progress. In relative terms, when compared to building a PC, the end game is just that. Completing the PC in its current form. The idea is to eliminate as many mistakes as possible so that they're not costly. Because a costly mistake when building a PC, or a mistake when building a PC, I'm sorry, can be a costly one. You bend that CPU, pulling like we talked about. We were talking to, I believe it was Mark who wanted to upgrade their CPU, right? Pulling that Ryzen CPU out could be a little tricky. You don't especially want to force that. Any part of the process, don't force, don't rush. Take your time, right? Hate to sound cliche or remind you of that old adage. It's better to be safe than sorry. Building a PC, that is especially the case. Better to be safe than sorry when building a PC, right? Again, a mistake is success in progress. It's proof of concept that you are trying, right? But eliminate those mistakes. Do the things outlined in this live show. If you just came on, you're kind of coming towards the end, so you may have to, go back to watch the replay to get caught up a little bit. It was a great conversation. I highly recommend you do so. But eliminating as many mistakes as possible is key to the process, okay? Because to avoid system or hardware failure and ensure your system is meeting or exceeding your expectations is something you want to try to capture and encapsulate with your PC. It is an investment. You are paying for the performance, and it's not cheap. And everybody's money is important. Who am I to say your bill costs $600? My bill costs $1,200. My bill's better than your bill because I spent more. Wrong, right? Your dollars are just as valuable as mine, no matter how much you have to spend. Compared to how much I have to spend. Teresa Grant says, "I will try that. Thank you very much." Yeah. I mean, definitely try. I mean, we're concluding here this live show. But again, follow me on Twitter at Inside the Lab YT. Follow me on Instagram at Inside the Lab YT. Give me some updates. I'm sorry, and part of my ignorance, I'm not sure if you already do, but if you don't, I do welcome you to follow me over there. And if anybody else that's watching and may want to, hit me with some, troubleshooting questions, or if you want to upgrade your system, like Mark had a question and you're unsure of what you should go with, follow me and shoot me a question. I will definitely follow you back. Teresa says, "I hope the video card is not damaged. I don't know what to do because there are only GT 1030s and RX 550s left where I live." So I mean, again, I don't quote me on this, but it could or could not be your graphics card. I would start with dialing back your memory, especially if you're running an XMP profile of 3000 megahertz on a B350 AM4 motherboard and a Ryzen 5 2600. Try to scale back your XMP profile. But, again, does your system freeze up the moment you go to load a game? The instant you turn it on, in the middle of a game, your XMP profile being unstable could very much contribute to your system doing that, right? But to be double sure, I would reinstall your drivers, right? Reinstall your Radeon graphics drivers. And, if you're unsure of which one, do one thing first and then see if it fixes the problem. Don't update your graphics drivers. Dial back the XMP profile. I would start with dialing back the XMP profile, even to 2666 megahertz. See what's stable, and then work your way slowly up from that. I'm willing to bet, though, your comfort zone on that B350 motherboard and Ryzen 5 2600 will be 2666 megahertz. That's going to be your sweet spot, because you're right. You don't want anything to be wrong with your graphics card, because it's really hard to replace. Even with, I believe you said it was a 290. So if you wanted to get more performance, you would likely want to be in the territory of like a 1650 Super, or maybe an RX 570. Any one of those kind of graphics cards would be a nice upgrade for you. But they're really hard to find new. You would have to dabble in the used market. I'm not sure how you're comfortable with the used market, but going in the used market is something we welcome here in this community. There's nothing wrong with going with the used market. But don't rule out your graphics card just yet, fam. Do those things first and see if you're able to, eliminate those instability issues that you are running into. And then do let us know over on the Twitter. Most of the community, especially the people that came out for this live show, most of them are already following me on Twitter. They share a lot of their journey. They share a lot of their victories and a lot of their losses with everybody on Twitter. So I do welcome you to follow me on Twitter at Inside the Lab YT, at Inside the Lab YT over on Instagram. And again, one more again, if you haven't yet, do like this, give this stream a like. And if you're new here to the community and you're watching on a replay and you made it this far, shout out to our replay viewers, for giving our replay a watch. I do respect and appreciate our replay viewers. But all right, now I think the ride is slowly coming to an end. It's been a fun, like always. And I mean, again, we do pop-up live streams. We do pop-up live streams. We just did one. If you want to see how that conversation went, where we talked about why do you play video games, go back and still watch that replay, fam. Watch an hour of the conversation. Throw it back. Throw it up on your TV. It's fun and entertaining. We played Alien Isolation, and I do only plan on finishing the game for the live stream. So I'm on as much as I want to play. Like I wanted to play it today, but we kind of celebrated my wife's birthday today. We're going to celebrate again tomorrow. But I didn't get the game today, and plus we were still planning for the live show. We were still getting everything together for the live show. But I only plan on playing Alien Isolation for the live stream. But it was a fun time. So definitely do watch that video. I believe it's titled Surprise Live. Stream games and chill. That's our pop-up live series, right? Where I just pop up and say, boop, what's up? What's happening? It's live here. We're live and we're playing some games. And normally those conversations are broad and accessible to everybody, right? Unlike this one, maybe you never built your PC before, so you're not quite sure how to participate in a conversation. Maybe you're just listening and lurking, trying to take in as much information as possible. That can feel draining at times, I will honestly admit. So our pop-up live streams are more designed to just kind of bring you into the conversation, you know, make it more informal, but very much still a friendly family-oriented environment where I play some games, and right now we're playing Alien Isolation. I do plan on doing one more pop-up live stream. I'll tell you for those of you who are here now, okay, that may be one day next week. Right? We'll maybe try like an earlier pop-up live. So that's 2 clues. One day next week and an earlier pop-up live. That's the only 2 clues I'm going to give you. So yeah, if that's your kind of stuff, your kind of thing, just you can find the replays down in the description box below, aka the basement. You can also find Amazon links to some of the different network PCIe cards we talked about, USB adapters we talked about, 20 to 25 feet long Ethernet cables if you want to run, wire your computer throughout your house. Or maybe you're on the 2nd floor, maybe you're on the 3rd. I mean, your router's downstairs, your computer's upstairs, or maybe vice versa, right? But you can find all those links down in the description box below. You can also find some similar and helpful content. You can find our email list down in the description box below. I do welcome you to sign up for our email list after this live show. Don't leave quite yet, but I do welcome you to sign up for our email list. All new notifications are going to go to email signees. Totally free. You can unsubscribe anytime. Check out our merch. Check out our website. All of those things are in the description box or the pinned comment. But yeah, the ride is slowly coming to an end, and I want to shout out everybody. I want to give a quick shout out like we normally do. I want to give a quick shout out to everybody who stopped by, starting with Teresa, which we had a few new first-time viewers. Shout out to our first-time viewers. If you're still here, before we sign off and you're a first-time viewer, please let your presence be known in the chat. Let us know here. Say first-time Lab Fam, so we can properly greet you and welcome you here to the community. We do go live once every week with regular VODs or regular videos sandwiched in between. I have the review. I'm doing a review of the RTX 3090, the Asus ROG Strix RTX 3090 review. Will be dropping this week. If you want to see the unboxing video I did a few weeks back, you can find that video down in the description box below at the very top. But I do want to say shout out to our first-time viewers like Teresa who stopped by. I believe Mark too has stopped by as well. If another first-time viewer, just name a few. As I scroll up here, I'll see them all. Forgive me, but Teresa, thanks for stopping by, fam. Walter, who I know already left, thanks for stopping by. Han Slomo, always good to see you, Han Slomo. I know Han Slomo already left, but appreciate Han Slomo stopping by. No, also a new member here in the community, or member here to our live show, guest here on our live show. I appreciate you stopping by, and for asking your questions and engaging with the community. It's also always good times to have new members come in and just jump right into the conversation. Bad Habit, who's always a regular a regular viewer. Gotta appreciate. Oh, I see Walter G. Walter G says, no, not yet. I'm still here. I'm here for the show wrap up. Walter G says, I love the show wrap up and the funky. Thanks for watching end scene, which is really fun. That's why I still roll it. And the show, my face concludes, but I still hang back and, talk and try to scroll up to the chat. And just in case if I missed any questions along the live show, while the thanks for watching and credits are playing, I'm still here. I'm still watching. I still monitor the chat, and I will still come back and verbally shout you out. But Teresa says thank you for the advice. Teresa, it's certainly my pleasure. Anytime, fam. Anytime. Literally, I mean that. Okay. All right. You're lab fam. You're here with the community. So anytime if I can help, I will. And if I can't, if I don't have the answers, I will do my earnest to try to find them for you. So make sure you take the conversation off of YouTube and follow me over on Twitter and Instagram. And Teresa, you can sign up for our email newsletter too with the pinned comment. Okay. So definitely do give that out, because unity starts with you. And by you, I mean everybody in the community, right? That's Mark, that's Walter, that's Teresa, that's our moderator, Kimberly, my wife, that's Bad Habit, that's Han Shlomo. Let me keep scrolling up here. That's Tricion who was here, who stayed up 3 a.m. in the morning to participate in the live show. That just goes to show you how dedicated the community is and how good these conversations and how good the live show goes. But Tricion who was here, a friend of mine, Ron Richards, who was here. Let me see. It's good to see some of my close friends pop in. Let me scroll up. I know we had more fam coming. XLR Gaming, aka RTX On, who's also Cliff. Cliff was also here in the house, who stopped by to say what's up. A few of my kids stopped by. Thunder, Tiger Nation, and even my daughter at some point popped in and said hi. Butter Knife stopped in and said hi. She didn't say hi, Dad, but she said hi. I guess I'm not Dad on the stream. Polecat123 had also popped in and said hi. And if you can't always stay, it's always good to just pop in and say hi. Who else? I see Damon, who was here earlier, another fellow creator who stopped by. It's me, Pulse, who's a new viewer. Let me see if my cat wants to come on camera and say if he wants to say hi. This is Piper Boomthrust Zoom Kitty making his first ever live appearance. He's not the we adopted him because his family was tragically killed in a roadside crash, but he was like the one of 2 siblings to survive. So we adopted him. He's a great house cat, but he was feral at one point. But this is Piper. He used to like appearing on video. He's a little camera shy. Piper, say hi to the camera. He's not a pick me up kind of cat, but I just wanted him to say hi one time. Come on, Piper, make it. Okay, he wants to get down. All right, you can go. All right, but that's Piper, ladies and gentlemen. Shout out to Piper making a quick cameo appearance. I see we also had Skitty that came in, another close friend of mine. Tiger Nation, and of course my mother, Pamela, my Mom Dukes. Mom came in and supported the stream for a while, which was awesome. It was very different to have my mom come into the live stream. That was interesting. I gotta talk to her. I gotta say, Mom, what do you wait to? Usually I ask my kids and my wife, the moderator Kimberly, I ask her to rate the stream, just to get a little bit of destructive feedback or criticism, if you will, from people who shouldn't be afraid to hurt my feelings. So yeah, it's always good to have them come out and support. See, Walter G says, absolutely, and keep the great stuff coming. Yeah, I mean, again, you guys, the audience, you guys are the lifeblood of this platform, YouTube in general. Like, you guys are the lifeblood of this platform. You guys are what makes it possible. Without the audience, creators, we are nothing. We have nobody to broadcast to. So literally, I owe everything to you lovely guys and gals. I do appreciate you tuning in with every week, and for the VODs and coming out and commenting and just showing up with your support and everything. I do appreciate it. Bad Habit with the cat faces, yeah, right, with Piper in the house. But all right, fam, that's it. All right, the show is coming to an end. The ride is coming to an end. Everybody's getting ready to board off and hop off. Do remember to check out the pinned comment, check out the description box for all of those things we talked about. in the comments, or I'm sorry, here in this live show. If you came in on a little bit later, do apologize. We're just concluding. I hate leaving when more people coming on because I feel like you're missing out on some of the important details. But hey, go back and give the stream a replay. Watch the replay, right? And definitely comment. Bad Habit says, have a great rest of the weekend, everyone. Happy birthday to Kimberly and happy anniversary to you guys. Thank you, Bad Habit. Deep down, from deepest from my heart, we definitely do appreciate it. But yeah, this is for those of you who didn't know and just came on. It's not only our moderator's birthday tomorrow, but it's also our anniversary the day after. 15 years of her putting up with me and this expensive habit of me buying expensive stuff and doing 4-hour live streams. But you gotta appreciate our moderator, right, Mrs. Mod? But yeah. But awesome. All right, fam. Do be sure to hang out in the stream ending or our post-credit scene. All right, I'll be still there to answer questions. And do enjoy as I make sure I get caught up in the chat. But thanks for hanging out here during this YouTube live stream. I hope to catch you all on the next one. So until then, be easy.